Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Korra, Katara and Suki. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. 16 years ago. Two volcanoes erupting as the smoke coming from the volcano's mouth covered the skies in a big shroud, ashes falling as it were black snow. One man was fighting against nature itself, his long white hair sticking to his aged face and forehead with sweat as he bended earth, fire and wind to calm the raging volcano, but he was unsuccessful and closed his eyes in anger at his failure. "Need a hand, old friend?" The old man turned behind him to see who had arrived and was surprised to see that it was his former best friend, Fire Lord himself. "Sasuke!" exclaimed the old man surprised. "We have no time to waste, Roku," exclaimed the Fire Lord as he got off his dragon and joined his former friend in the attempt to calm down the volcano. Both stepped closer at the mouth of the volcano as the lava was pouring out like a geyser. Roku placed both his hands together as he closed his eyes and slowly brought them down as he exhaled his breath, pushing the lava down into the volcano, while Sasuke extended his hand towards the river of molten rock and extracted the heat from the lava as he expelled it through his other hand, successfully calming it down somewhat till it erupted again with more force, making the ground underneath the Fire Lord collapse and would have fallen to his demise if it hadn't been for Avatar Roku, saving him as he extended his arm outward, bending the earth to make a small platform underneath Sasuke and nodded his thanks at Roku. The volcano erupted even stronger as the ground trembled, parting the ground its wake, and the two began to run for safety. "Don't breathe the toxic gases," shouted Roku as he bended the air to blow away the air toxins, but the ground cracked underneath him and the poisonous gas shot into his face as he took a deep breath. Coughing and feeling noxious, Avatar Roku fell to one knee as he began to cough, and with his vision going blurry, he reached out for Sasuke. "Please Sasuke coughed Roku as he still held out his hand as he begged the Fire Lord for his help, and Sasuke just stood there, staring back at the Avatar passively, till out of the blue, Sasuke shot his fist forward and a flare of flames shot out of his fist, nailing the Avatar right in the chest, fatally wounding him as he was sent flying backwards, landing with a loud thud on the ground. Putting the flames out, Roku could only stare in shock at the betrayal of his former friend. The Avatar glared hatefully at the Fire Lord as the wound and the poisonous gas finally beginning to take its toll on his body. "Why Sasuke muttered the Avatar as he stared at his former friend. Sasuke smirked darkly. "It's simple really, with you gone, all my plans are going to be realized. I have a vision for the future, Roku, with me being its sole ruler," replied the white-haired monster as his dragon landed behind him, waiting for his master to mount him. Mounting the dragon, the Fire Lord stared passively at Roku and flew out of the island in haste, without turning back. Roku kept glaring into the distance where Sasuke's dragon flew, coughing and holding his chest in pain as he kneeled on the ground. Fang, the Avatar's dragon, saw his master being in danger as the avalanche came crashing down the island. The dragon flew down towards Roku and wrapped himself around him, the avalanche engulfing both of them into their death, along with the rest of the deserted village, as the volcano continued to erupt. Meanwhile, at the Southern Air Temple, a little baby boy with blonde hair was brought to the world, the mother smiling tenderly at her child. Not knowing of the fate that was set for the air nomads and the destiny that awaited each child, they continued to celebrate, only for said child to disappear 16 years later in the world's desperate time of need and to reappear in a world of chaos 100 years later. The laugh rang through the open field where the young monk ran about playing with his friend. The young boy was of course shaved bald like all other males and even had extremely detailed tattoos placed on his head, arms, and legs depicting arrows. The loud roar from overhead caused them to laugh as the great beast landed with powerful beats of its great wings. "Come on Aang, we gotta get going, or we're gonna be late," the young man called out to his friend. "Humming Naruto," Aang excitedly called back as the beast let out a soft growl of pleasure of its master coming to him. The beast in question was actually supposed to be one of the air nomads' most feared creatures, the great Leonopteryx. When Naruto was but a boy, he had stumbled across the great beast when it was but a newborn hatchling and bonded to it immediately. He had struggled to find a air bison calf who would be his companion and as such was very heartbroken when none had chosen him as a partner, but the fact that a predator of the highest proportions had bonded to him said many things in place of that bond. The great Leonopteryx was in fact a sacred animal to many of the bending cultures and still were very frightening to those who didn't understand them. In fact, many in the Fire Nation feared them because of several things that went against them. First was their invulnerability to all forms of fire. Second was their ability to bend the wind much like the air bisons would, but in a more combative way. Thirdly was the fact that their skin was nearly impenetrable by any means and only a certain weapon could bring them down. Finally, was their near immortal lives of living for hundreds of years at a time. Not only that, but their strength was only matched to the sheer ferocity of a dragon's own, and even then, dragons didn't fight like a Leonopteryx would, and when they did, the Leonopteryx would usually win the battle. The Leonopteryx in question is predominantly a primarily colored red and yellow, with black stripes and blue crests on the top of the head and under its lower jaw. The crest on its head is razor sharp and can be used to injure or disembowel prey or cut vegetation obstructing flight. The Leonopteryx also has large flexible membranous wings stretched taut over a carbon fiber bone structure, powerful talons for grasping prey and perching, twin tails for flight control, and large hooked claws. The Leonopteryx has powerful jaws which can open at a wide angle, capable of cleaving any animal it catches to eat in half. Despite their superior binary vision, meaning it can see both heat signatures, but it can also zoom in to look at its prey from afar, they are unable to see directly above them, most likely due to the very pronounced brow ridges above their eyes. The wingspan of the Leonopteryx is more than 90 feet. Its wings are composed of individual finned members that can separate to act as a slotted airfoil or overlap and seal to form a solid surface. These finned members are not unlike the primary feathers of many birds. They were very fast and very agile when they flew, and to encounter one in the wild was not a good sign for one's health overall. The beast has 6 limbs, with its middle pair of legs serving as the stabs, and its rearmost pair have taloned feet, which are used for grabbing prey while diving or to provide a stronger kick while taking off. The Leonopteryx has 4 large golden eyes with black pupils. 2 of its main eyes are in the front of the skull, and the 2 others are located near the rectangular antenna bases. Due to its eyes, the Leonopteryx would not be a dense jungle hunter. It also has what appear to be 2 rather short tails. These may simply be extensions of the rear fins. The function of these is unclear, it may be to increase agility or perhaps play a role in display. It is also much larger than a sky bison by roughly a size and a half. Smiling broadly in excitement, Naruto climbed into the saddle situated on his friend's neck, located at the base of the creature's neck. "Torek, it's a great day to go flying," Naruto said excitedly as Aang climbed into the large saddle used when others were with him. 2 large tendrils twitched in excitement, though in reality these were more like whiskers or even ears, though nobody knew for certain, as Leonopteryx were generally never near people, and as such not much was known about them, other than what was seen and witnessed. Wrapping these 2 bands around his arms and grasping them in his hands, he gave a loud "yeah," where Torek raised himself up onto his hind legs while spreading his wings to give a loud groa. Before Torek took to the air with mighty beats of its wings. Normally when the roar of a great Leonopteryx was heard it would send many if not all who heard its bellow into a frightening frenzy to either hide or escape, but Torek had been around the temple so long that many had grown accustomed to his cry before takeoff. That and he was a Alpha Leonopteryx, and as such all others stayed away. When an Alpha Leonopteryx is born, it is shown by the body's colors, red, gold, black being the indications. Most of the world's great Leonopteryx population was a deep blue, purple, black mix, and as such would actually cower before alpha of their species for coming into their territory and even flee in fear for the might of the alpha coming after it and not more demanding prey. And for a super predator, that says a lot about their own lifestyle. And believe it or not, the biggest threat to the species wasn't hunters, but their own kind hunting down others for either food or just to kill. The creatures were extremely territorial and would be merciless if another came into lands they weren't supposed to. Even outright killing another of their own kind wasn't out of the norm for these great creatures. As they flew through the air, Aang was curious, "So, what did Monk Gyatso say to you yesterday?" Aang asked his best friend. "Said something about a ceremony. I don't know what exactly it entails, but it does make me curious as to why he's having all of the monks come to the southern temple for, and if that isn't enough, it must mean it is very important," he told Aang. "It's exciting if you think about it, all the monks coming together like this," Aang said happily as Torek flapped his wings to get some distance and speed. "It is, and I can't help but wonder why," Naruto said to himself. "Maybe it's to see who is the next avatar," Aang suggested. "Maybe, I wonder who it is," Naruto thought to himself. Southern Air Temple. With great flaps of his wings, Torek sat down on the ground where Aang and Naruto quickly climbed down and continued on their way where lots of airbenders raced inside happily talking. Monk Gyatso was smiling happily as 2 monks greeted him, and he returned their greeting politely. Naruto rushed over and happily jumped into the man's grasp as the monk greeted him. "Naruto, so good of you to come by," Gyatso said happily. The dark-skinned monk was like a father to Naruto, and seeing him was always a nice thing for the young boy as he always treated him like he was supposed to treat him, even though he was turning 16 tomorrow. "I apologize for the out-of-character actions, Monk Gyatso, but it always makes me happy to see you," Naruto said as he stepped back from the hug from the elder monk. "No worries, Naruto, besides, it's a big day for all of us," he told the young man. "You never did explain to me what it's about," Naruto said. Today, we find out who the Avatar is. We already have everything prepared, now, all we have to do is wait. Gyatso said smiling happily, you two best hurry inside now, while all the children are still playing with the toys. He said while Long felt his eyes light up in excitement, then again he was only 7 years old before he rushed inside to play. Toys? Aren't I a little old for such things? Naruto asked his mentor. Oh, it never hurts to play with the toddlers, to teach them that their childhood is still very important, that all the time in the world means little compared to that of a young one's time. Gyatso said. Naruto shrugged, I guess you have a point, I'll go play with some of the little ones. Naruto said waving farewell for now to the older monk, see you later, and don't forget to tell me when the ceremony begins. Naruto called out as he entered the temple. Gyatso smiled and waved to the young monk as he entered the temple to play with the children, he sure has grown, can't believe it's already been 16 years by tomorrow. He said to himself before he greeted another airbender that traveled from afar. -3 hours later. I see all the young men and women from the ages of 16 down to 3 have gathered, it warms my heart to see so many of our people come together for such an important thing like this. Gyatso said as the other high monks joined him. Now, we want all the young men and women that turn 16 on the morrow to pick 4 toys that they would like, and that will decide on who is going to be the next great leader for our people. An elderly monk said simply. A great elder monk, may I ask why we have to choose toys? A young female airbender by the name of Jinora asked, who was roughly the same age as Naruto. We will tell you if you choose 4 toys. The monk replied. Jinora shrugged her shoulders and proceeded to pick up 4 random toys. Okay, now can you tell us? She asked. No. What, but you said pick 4 toys and I did. The young woman said. Gyatso shook his head, it is to determine the next avatar. Once all of you have chosen 4 toys among the thousands, we will see which of you is the next in the cycle and begin proper training for you with the masters from the last cycle who learned with Roku. He told them, now choose wisely for each choice can only be made once. He emphasized to them. And with that, the young avatars to be began to look through the thousands of toys laid out before them. Naruto smiled as he looked through the toys, which for him was strange as nothing seemed to stand out to him. He simply reached out and grabbed a small stuffed turtle and held it in his hands gently before he walked around a bit and picked up a monkey and rattler as well as a little disc flyer. Eventually all the young men and women sat on their knees with the 4 toys of their choosing laid out in front of them, where the lead monks looked through them and passed everyone by, including Naruto himself. When they had finished looking, the elderly monks all walked back to the front and sat down. Gyatso cleared his throat, we have decided that on the morrow of when the previous avatar, Avatar Roku, perished, we would divulge the secret identity of the avatar to the nomadic people of the Air Nation. So would all those who chose their toys please rise and exit the temple. Children under the ages of 10 will now head to the field to continue their lessons. Those of the age 16 may take the day to relax until we call for them tomorrow. He told the airbenders. With that, everyone left except the leading monks of the 4 temples, so, we have found him, who is to say that he will live up to everyone's expectations. A old monk with a beard said. Avatar Naruto will surpass all other avatars before him, as Roku did with Lady Kaiashi when she removed Kaiashi Island from the mainland. Gyatso stated. Do not put much faith to the boy's prowess just yet, he is still learning. Another monk said. Nevertheless, do not forget that he is still our avatar. Gyatso stated seriously. The next day. Naruto was standing in line with the other teenagers told to pick between the toys while the elder monks walked in. Gyatso stood at the front and cleared his throat. Today, we announce the identity of the air nomad who has been reborn as the avatar. It is our great privilege and honor to announce that the toys who allowed us to discover who is the next avatar is Avatar Naruto. He said, unrolling a skin that had the 4 toys he had chosen. Naruto felt shocked at what he had heard. Me? He asked himself in shock, that's not right, I only chose them cause they looked fun. He said. You chose them because they were familiar to you, as did Roku, and as did Kaiashi and all the others who have been revealed. This test never lies to us as it has been used for hundreds of years. Monk Tashi explained, it is an honor to see you again, Avatar. The elder monk said as he led him up to the spot where he stood while the other lead monks moved to where the other airbenders stood. All hail the Avatar, Avatar Naruto. Announced the monk before he kneeled. And with this movement, the other monks kneeled before him as well, with Gyatso smiling proudly at him and nodding his head. Naruto took a deep breath and steadied himself. He was the new avatar. If this test had been done the same way for generations of avatars, then there was no denying this fact. Naruto proceeded to bow his head in return, I accept my position as the avatar. I aim to retain the balance that Avatar Roku kept and maintained in the place of Avatar Kaiashi did before him and all others beforehand. He announced as the monks stood up and began to clap happily. The head monks walked up to him and bowed again. "Young Avatar, please come to the Chamber of Elders. We must speak with you on important details of your position of being the Avatar, and it is very important that you come see us about it," Tashi told Naruto, who nodded his head. Naruto nodded his head. "I understand, Master Tashi," he responded. Aang watched as the lead monks walked away before he ran up to Naruto. "You're the Avatar, that's so cool," he exclaimed excitedly. Indra soon ran over and smacked him on the shoulder. "Don't bother him with such nonsense, Aang, he needs time to come to term with his new position," she said to the slightly younger boy. "Well, excuse me for wanting to congratulate my friend on being the Avatar," Aang responded. "This doesn't change how we've been his friend, right?" Naruto asked nervously. "Naruto, I've known you since practically the day we met, trust me Naruto, we'll always be friends, hell maybe one day you'll keep that promise of making me your wife from when we were children," she said, nudging him in the ribs. "Indra," Naruto cried out in total embarrassment. "What, don't tell me that you're backing out on that now," she stated. "Well, I'll get back to you on that," Naruto said, blushing deeply. Yeah, I'm sure," Indra giggled. "So what's it like?" Aang asked him. "What's what like?" Naruto asked in confusion. "Being the Avatar," young boy stated. "Doesn't feel any different, to be honest." Naruto shrugged to himself. "I mean, I don't feel any overwhelming power, no incredible abilities, so I mean it's nothing different," he told Aang. "Naruto, I think you need to go see the elders before anything or anyone else stops you, don't worry, we'll be right here," Indra said honestly. Naruto looked to his friend. "You sure? I mean, it could be a while before I come back," he told her. "Yay, and when you do get back I'll have the rest of the gang here to celebrate," she told him. "Milo?" Naruto asked. "Yep," Indra stated. "Tenzin?" Naruto asked her. She nodded. "Yumi?" Aang asked excitedly. "He's not here," Naruto and Indra said together. "You said everyone," Aang said. Indra shook her head. "Just go, you're wasting time for something that could be vital," she told Naruto with a smile. "Yay, see you later," he told her before he took off. He had to meet the elders like he was told, and hopefully he would be able to shed some light on his friends when it was over with. Knocking on the door of the room, Naruto entered and stood before the leaders of the nomadic nation. "I come to serve honorable elders," he said politely. "Naruto, we thank you for coming," Gyatso said calmly. "We have no easy way of telling you this, but something is coming, and we cannot stop it. As the Avatar, you are the symbol that people need to see in order to make sure that balance is maintained," Tashi said calmly. "What is it? As the Avatar, I believe that I must do what the people need of me to ensure that the balance of the world is kept in order," Naruto said, though he felt like he was being forced to do so. "But we don't know, and I fear that by the time we do it'll be too late," another elder by the name of Pasang said calmly. "Then what should I do? I need to learn the elements, and I am unable to do such a task well here," Naruto said. "Patience is a virtue, young Avatar, we know you are frightened by this, but you are more than ready to meet the challenges of the world," Tashi told Naruto. "So you want me to sit around and wait while something foreboding comes and threatens the world, you essentially want me to do nothing?" Naruto asked the asters of his people. "No, it is that, it is the fact we do not know what is coming that we want you to be prepared to do what you must. You hold more power in yourself than anything you ever realize. Not just the power of the Avatar, but of the entire world, making sure you are ready to take the steps necessary to maintain the balance," Pasang told Naruto. "Then what happens if nothing happens?" he questioned. "Something always happens when we least expect it, the only thing we can do is make sure we are prepared enough to counter whatever it is the world throws at us," Gyatso aide smiling at his young student. "I understand, master, but this is making no sense to me," he told them. In time it will, young Avatar," Tashi told him pointedly. "Is there anything else I should know?" he asked. "No, you are free to go," Pasang told him. Outside, Naruto watched as the clouds gathered and begun to rumble. A storm was approaching, and it was gonna be a big one. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Jinora standing next to him. "Hey, is everything alright?" she asked him with a sad expression on her face. Naruto shrugged. "Don't really know. The elders said something is about to happen, and I don't know what to make of it, to be honest," he said before taking a deep breath and releasing it. "I think they're hiding something, but I don't know what," he said. "Well, whatever it is, I'm sure it's nothing bad," she said, shrugging her shoulders before thunder boomed overhead, causing her to look up. "I think we better head inside, it's about to rain," she said calmly. Naruto looked up and nodded as lightning flashed again. "Yay, I'll be inside in a." He didn't finish as an explosion rocked the ground, causing them to stumble. "What was that?" he cried out before another blast was shot into the mountain. "It's the Fire Nation, but why are they attacking?" Jinora asked as a blast of fire flew over her head. "I think I found out what the elders were hiding," Naruto said in shock before turning to his friend Jinora, go find Aang, Tenzin and Milo, and take them to the stables, we need to leave right now. He told her. And where are we gonna go? We can't fight, we aren't trained to do that, we aren't fighters. She said in worry. Naruto brought her over and kissed her cheek, calm down and find those brats would ya, can't really make an escape when you're running on adrenaline now. He said before he rushed off to get some of his stuff. Jinora felt her face heat up in embarrassment, did he do that out of feelings he might have had for her, or did he do it for other reasons? Oh, don't get the wrong idea, she liked Naruto, a lot actually, but it didn't mean she had a crush on him since they were little kids shooting up, she needed to find the dastardly trio of troublemakers. And with that she ran to find them. Naruto ran into the ceremonial room and wrapped up the 4 toys just in case and rushed to his room. Setting the toys on his bed he grabbed a traveling bag and threw some things into it before he tossed the toys inside and rushed out the room, only to come back seconds later to grab his glider, can't forget this. He told himself and then he rushed out to the stables where he saw Aang cowering under Tariq who was roaring to the heavens, Aang, where are Tenzin, Milo and Jinora? Naruto called out. I don't know. Jinora told me to come here and so I did. He cried out. Naruto. A voice called out causing him to turn and see Jinora come running over with 2 other kids near Aang's age behind her, I found them. She called out. Alright, get on board, we're getting out of here, now. Naruto roared out. What about everyone else? A young boy with a missing tooth asked. Let's just hope some of them escape Milo, right now we need to get going or else something might happen to each of us. Naruto said rushing the children into the large carrier on his animal guide's back. Jumping into the saddle he once more called for Tariq to take to the heavens. Tariq gave a roar that sounded like a hurricane as he fought against the heavens. The powerful beast flapped against the wind blasting at it and ducked under a powerful gout of flame and performed a roll, much to the young children's shock, and blasted the flame away with a roar. However, that wasn't to say it was over, no, in fact it got much worse when a powerful blast struck the mighty Leonopteryx in the wing and caused it to fall into the deep ocean below. Naruto felt his eyes snap open as a white-colored set of orbs. Suddenly a bubble of air surrounded them as the power of the Avatar surrounded them with light glows, and with everything else going on, everything went white for the group of young airbenders. For 100 years, the war that Fire Lord Sazin had started, waged on, with the catastrophes being high, and the entire balance between the nations now destroyed, when the Fire Lord ordered the eradication of the air nomads, in order to stop the rebirth cycle of the Avatar, but the Avatar had fled the temples at the start of the war, with several acolytes feeling alongside. The years passed and many feared that due to the eradication of the air nomads, that the cycle had been broken forever. However, that is untrue, for if one were to have been at the southern pole where the southern water tribes lived, a miracle was about to unfold and shine a light within the despairing shadow. In the Arctic waters of the South Pole, a small boat could be seen slowly drifting on the sea between the glaciers, and inside the small boat were 2 teenagers. One boy with tan skin, blue eyes, shaved head save for a strip of brown hair pulled back in a small ponytail, and his companion was a girl, who also with tan skin, blue eyes, and brown hair whole some of her hair was pulled into a bun, as the rest was braided into a ponytail beneath it. Both were wearing thick blue fur clothes to protect them from the freezing winds. The boy held a spear as he hungrily eyed the fish that swam by. It's not getting away from me this time, he said greedily. Watch and learn, Katara, he said to the girl, this is how you catch a fish. Katara threw him a skeptical look, then looked down and spotted another fish. Taking off her glove, she raised her hand and began to wave her hand, causing a globe of water holding the fish to rise out of the water. Sokka, look. She called out excitedly. Shh, Katara, you're gonna scare him away, he whispered, not taking his eyes off the fish. He licked his lips, I already smell him cooking. But Sokka, I caught one, she continued to move the globe through the air. Just as Sokka reared the spear back going for the strike, he didn't notice the water globe behind him, and with his spear, he stick it into the globe, popping it like a balloon, splashing all over as he cried out, and the fish jumped back into the sea. Hey! Katara yelled as she glared at Sokka. Growling, he turned and glared at his sister, why is that every time you play with magic water I get soaked? Katara sighed tiredly as she once again had to argue with her brother, it's not magic. It's waterbending and it's… Yeah, an ancient art unique to our culture, blah, 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 Sokka recited annoyingly, you've only told like 1,000 times. Thought in his mind. Look, I'm just saying that if I had weird powers, I'd keep my weirdness to myself. He said shrugging. Katara raised an eyebrow, you're calling me weird. I'm not the one who makes muscles at myself every time I see my reflection, she said to her brother, smirking as her point was proven, since Sokka was doing it right now. Realizing that Katara had proven her point, Sokka stopped his flexing and glared at her. Then suddenly, the boat began to shake as it was picked up by a fast current. Grabbing the paddle, Sokka started paddling to keep from crashing into ice chunks, while his sister started screamed. "Watch out." Katara yelled as she noticed two chunks of ice were headed their way in a collision course, making both of them get scared, for if the boat got caught between them, it would be crushed along with them. Go left. Go left," she cried. Then the boat rammed into several ice chunks before ultimately getting crushed by the ice as they were forced out of the boat and onto a platform chunk of ice. Both looked up and looked around, realizing that they were stranded. "You call that left?" deadpanned Katara, looking at her brother. "You don't like my steering, well maybe you should have water-bended us out of the ice," Sokka said as he sat up, making a water-bending motion. Katara stood up, "So it's my fault," she said while her eyebrow was twitching annoyingly. "I knew I should have left you home, leave it to a girl to mess things up," scoffed Sokka as he crossed his arms. Katara glared at him angrily. "You are the most sexist. Immature. Nut-brained," she yelled, flailing her arms around wildly, unconsciously bending the water behind her. "I'm embarrassed to be related to you." Causing the iceberg behind her beginning to crack and break to pieces with her anger, while Sokka kept staring wide-eyed. "Ever since Mom died, I've been doing all the work around camp while you've been off playing soldier." Katara. Sokka said meekly as he put his dot. "I even wash all the clothes. Have you even smelled your dirty socks? Let me tell you. Not pleasant." The iceberg cracked further as she continued to make angry faces. "Katara. Settle down," said Sokka as he tried to calm his sister down. "No. That's it. I'm done helping you. From now on you're on your own." And finally, the iceberg broke completely, catching Katara's attention as she turned. As it collapsed, it created large waves that pushed them back even further. "Okay. You've gone from weird to freakish, Katara," deadpanned Sokka. "You mean I did that?" asked a surprised Katara. "Yep, congratulations," said the warrior wannabe as he put his hand on her shoulder, but a blue light suddenly appeared from underneath and caught their attention. The water bubbled as it got bigger as the light kept glowing brighter and brighter until the light burst out of the water, turning out to be a giant glowing iceberg as it floated on the water with several shadows stuck inside the ice. Katara looked closely at the iceberg and saw two figures, one big and one small. She raised an eyebrow in curiosity. "What the heck?" She thought. The small human shape suddenly opened a pair of glowing eyes, shocking the two teens. "There's someone in there that's alive. We have to help them," Katara exclaimed as she snatched Sokka's club and headed toward the iceberg. "Katara, get back here," Sokka ordered. "We don't know what that thing is." He grabbed his spear and chased after his sister. By the time he got there, Katara was already clubbing the iceberg with all her might as she swung 2 times and a small crack began to form. With one last mighty swing and managed to break through, releasing a burst of air that blew them back. The crack began to course around the iceberg right through the middle, before finally burst with a blue light shot up into the sky. Tiger seals roared in fright but stopped after a big boom. The light shot into what looked like a big hole in the sky, where the same colored light circled down around the beam and crashed into the iceberg. A distance away. However, Katara, Sokka, and the tiger seals weren't the only ones to see the light. A metal boat not too far away with the flag of fire was sailing through the icebergs, and in it, a teenage boy in red and black armor stared at the light in slight awe before his golden eyes began to narrow, glaring at it. "Finally," he said. His head was mostly shaved. Just a small patch of hair where a ponytail grew out of it, but his most noticeable feature, however, was the scar covering his left eye to his ear, as his eye could barely open due to the massive scar. "Uncle, do you realize what this means?" the boy said to an old man wearing red robes and armor. "That I won't get to finish my game?" the man asked his nephew. "It means," the boy ignored the remark, "my search is about to come to an end." The old man sighed while rubbing his eyes and just shook his head. "Here we go again," he thought before sighing to himself. "That light came from an incredibly powerful source, Uncle. It has to be him," retorted the scarred firebender to the old man. The old man sighed once again and shook his head. "Or it's just the celestial lights being brought out by the spirits. We've been down this road before, Prince Zuko. I don't want you to get too excited over nothing again," Zuko's uncle said as he continued playing his game of cards. "Now come and sit. Why don't you have a nice cup of calming jasmine tea?" "I don't need any freaking calming tea. I need to capture the Avatar," Zuko exclaimed angrily and then turned towards the tower of the ship. "Helmsman. Head a course to the light." Iroh sighed and placed an air card over another air card as a gentle breeze swept through the ship. The steam had finally cleared, allowing the siblings to see the broken part of the iceberg. As they looked at each other then back to the iceberg, Sokka raised his spear as if waiting for something or someone to suddenly come out and attack them, but he didn't have to wait long for a young teenager about Sokka's age, with a glowing arrow on his head, rose out the iceberg. Raising his spear higher, pointing at the kid, he yelled, "Stop." The kid stood fully up looking very intimidating as he based his eyes at the two. The glow slowly disappeared and Baldy collapsed onto the ground, heading head first, but luckily, Katara was able to catch him before he hit the ground and gently held him in her arms. Sokka scooted near the kid that lay on his sister's arms and began to poke him on the head with his spear. Katara, getting annoyed with her brother's antics, swatted the spear away as she glared at him. "Stop it," Katara told her brother before she gently laid him down on the snow. The bald one slowly started to awaken. Opening his storm grey eyes and groggily looked at Katara before gasping softly, "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm Katara, this is my big brother Sokka," she told him. While his sister was occupied talking to the newfound stranger, Sokka was studying him. The kid was bald with an arrow going from his forehead and down his neck to most likely his back, arms and legs. His attire consisted of yellow clothing, Earth Kingdom, thought Sokka, but the lack of green clothing told him that wasn't the case and made him scratch that theory out, orange and yellow. Why does that sound familiar? Finished his thoughts as he started to scratch his chin as he watched a bald teen float to his feet, causing Sokka to jump back in surprise, with his mouth open and spear in front. "What's going on here?" asked the kid. "You tell us. How did you get in the ice? And why aren't you frozen?" demanded Sokka as he began poking him with his spear, but the kid swatted his spear away as he looked around. A deep growl startled both Sokka and Katara, but Baldy just climbed back into the glacier and jumped down to land next to a giant mound of red flesh. "Torek, are you alright bud? Jinora, Aang, Tenzin, Milo, say something guys," Naruto said, dusting off the snow of what appeared to be other kids dressed similarly. "Please, you have to move," the bald teen said in worry. "Torek, you gotta move bud, you can't just stay down," called out Baldy as he lifted the creature's eyelid. But got no response, so he tried waking it up by trying to lift his face. The siblings came around the corner of the iceberg and saw the kid messing with the creature and gasped when the animal licked the kid, raising him from the ground as he laughed. "Well, I guess that means you're alright Torek," he said happily. "Naruto, where are we?" a feminine voice asked weakly. "What is that thing?" Sokka cried out. "Naruto, what's going on, where are we?" Jinora asked him again. "I don't know, still trying to wake the others," Naruto said before they started to shift around. "Oh, thank goodness you guys are alright," he said as he helped each of them up, though one of the kids just decided he liked his sleep more, and apparently Baldy, who was apparently named Naruto, decided to say something about it. "Hey Milo, Monk Tashi is taking away the deserts for good," the teen yelled. "No, my sweetness, come back to me," the young boy named Milo cried as he shot up with a face of horror. "They're all kids," Katara said in realization. "So do you guys live around here?" one of the smaller bald boys asked. Suddenly, Katara's brother jumped in between them with his spear pointed at him menacingly. "Don't answer that. Did you see that crazy beam of light? That was probably these guys trying to signal the Fire Nation," said Sokka as he eyed the kid cautiously. Further annoyed with her brother's stupidity, she just rolled her eyes as she pushed her brother back. "Oh yeah. He's a Fire Nation spy, you can tell by his appearance and the evil look in his eyes," said Katara as she gestured toward the kid, and Baldy just grinned innocently, while the blonde tilted his head, eyes squinted, causing Sokka's eyebrow to twitch. "The paranoid one is my brother Sokka. You never told us your name," she said to the young kid. "I'm Itachi." But before he could properly introduce himself, the bald kid sneezed, blowing a small cloud of snow as he flew into the sky, landing softly into the ground as he sniffed. "I'm Aang." "You just sneezed and flew 10 feet in the air," Sokka stated incredulously as he lazily pointed at Aang. "Really? It felt higher than that." "Reel it in bud, no need to turn it into a competition," a younger boy huffed. Katara gasped, eyes squinted in surprise. "You're all airbenders?" she exclaimed. "We sure are," grinned Aang. "Well, me and Jinora are full masters, these three troublemakers were under my instructions before stuff went down," Naruto said, motioning to the three young boys. "You've already met Aang, our resident playboy, so don't let his looks fool you," he said, rubbing the boy's head. "This here is Milo, the creative one of the group, and this is Tenzin, our serious one," he said, patting each boy on the shoulder. "Giant light beams, giant LastAirbenders think I've got midnight sun madness. I'm going home where things make sense." He turned around and realized that there was no way off the iceberg as he stupidly glazed into the distance. "Well, if you guys are stuck, Torek can give you a lift," Naruto said calmly as he placed himself onto his saddle. "We'd love a ride thanks," Katara bowed. "Oh no, I am not getting on that very toothy monster," Sokka protested. "Are you hoping some other kind of monster will come along and give you a ride? You know, before you freeze to death," said the waterbender in training to Sokka, but before he started to say something, he suddenly stopped for he had no argument and gave up, stubbornly climbed on top of the predator. Crossing his arms in annoyance while Katara seemed excited. "Okay. First time flyers, hold on tight. Naruto called. Ha. He urged his friend up off the ground with a powerful flap of his wings. Torek rebounded off a couple of cliffs made of ice, but eventually the great Leonopteryx took off like the majestic creature he was. Naruto yawned as Torek flapped his wings, his eyes getting heavy as time moved on. A tap on his shoulders caused him to turn and see Jinora balancing on Torek's back. Let me take over for a bit, you should get some rest. She told him softly, I already put the troublesome trio to rest while we travel, so they can regain their strength, so it's fine to get some rest while you can. You've already done so much so far and it's time to let up. She said logically as Naruto nodded and unwrapped his arms and slowly walked around Jinora, where she took over the flight of his animal guide for the time being, until they arrived at the water tribe. Torek gave a loud roar that howled across the sky as he beat his wings a couple times. As Naruto laid his head down, he dreamed. The moon had turned red, and pain had crashed into his chest unlike any other. He saw a fish bleeding in a pool, and a white-haired woman lying in the pool of water, where a flash of light enveloped both fish and human, before the fish begun to once more swim with life, as the human gave up her life to revive it. He saw a tidal wave rise into the air, as a massive fleet of ships began to flee in terror. And, there was a voice, water teaches us acceptance. Let your emotions flow, like water. However, his sleep was brought to a stop when he felt somebody begin to shake him awake. Naruto, wake up, we've arrived. Jinora's voice spoke to him through his drowsy sleep-addled mind. Waking up he saw he was still outside on Torek's back, but they were still flying through the air. A roar from his friend sounded through the air, alerting all to his presence. Sitting up he looked below and saw that they had arrived at a small village covered in snow. They had arrived at the southern water tribe's home. He could tell that they had fallen on hard times, as there were more women than men and children were running around trying to find something to entertain themselves. Where are we? Naruto asked, and who's flying Torek? He asked looking to Jinora. Aang has control, but it was only so I could wake you. It appears we've somehow traveled to the southern water tribe in the South Pole. Other than that I don't know what's going on. Jinora said truthfully. Well, I just hope everyone back home is alright. Naruto yawned to himself. Me too. Jinora said. We're coming in for a landing, brace for impact. Aang called as Torek began to descend from the heavens. On the ground people were scrambling back in terror of the massive shadow that the almighty great Leonopteryx cast down beneath him. As he braced himself back, Torek flapped mighty gusts of wind that blew the villagers back as they tripped and fell over one another to try and escape whatever manner of creature was attacking them. As his feet hit the ground, Torek raised himself up and gave a bellowing growl. That let them know he was there before them before he planted his clawed wings onto the ground and folded his feather-like appendages inward and waited for the riders of the powerful predator to climb down. Naruto was quick to walk down, running his hand along Torek's neck to keep him calm, his deep growls rumbling through his neck. The villagers shifted nervously at the sight of an obviously dangerous individual and saw as he pat the beast on its head. Soon enough other villagers watched as a young boy climbed off its back followed by two others and a female. However, what shocked them most was that Sokka and Katara came after the strangely dressed people. One elderly lady in particular looked at the beast in shock, for she had thought that they had all been wiped out a century ago by the fabled Black Arrow hunt and whispered in awe, "Great Leonopteryx," before she swallowed a lump in her throat as the group walked forward. "Katara, what are you doing?" A young woman that looked almost identical to the girl in question said in shock. It's alright Korra, they're not gonna hurt us," Katara said running over to comfort the now revealed Korra. "Like hell they are, that's a predatory animal that you came riding in on," Korra whispered. "Torek won't hurt anybody, he's been raised around humans since he was a baby. Give him a fish and he's your friend for life," Aang shouted out heatedly. "But be quiet Aang, we are not here to cause trouble. We need to return to the Southern Air Temple and find out what happened before we woke up." The young woman who was dressed similarly spoke in a chiding voice. "Sorry Jinora," Aang said to the now named Jinora. Naruto swallowed a lump in his throat. "May I ask who is the chieftain in charge of the tribe?" Naruto asked. "That would be me," Sokka said, "well at least until my dad returns from his current duty in Wetnut," he explained. "Well besides you who here is in charge?" Naruto asked. Gran. Sokka moaned out as said woman walked forward now having gotten over her fear of the predator they had flew in on. "Naruto and Associates, this is the village, entire village, Naruto and Associates." Katara introduced the airbenders to the village while Naruto simply bowed, but the villagers backed away a bit in small fright as the children scooted close to their mothers as they hugged their children close. Leaning closer to Jinora, Naruto whispered, "Why are they looking at us like that? Did Torek sneeze on one of us?" he asked her. An old woman stepped up from the group, "No young one, we're just surprised, for no one has seen an airbender in 100 years. We thought they were extinct until my granddaughter and grandson found you." "Extinct?" Jinora asked in surprise as she thought. Extinct? What's she talking about? Naruto, Jinora, his is my grandmother, Katara introduced the old woman. Call me Gran, she simply said. Oh, and you already met my elder twin sister Korra. Katara added as her now very apparent twin came up to them. You need to make sure that your trips don't end like this, last time Sokka nearly froze from your hunt. She said poking her baby sister on the chest. Oh buzz off Korra. Like you're any different. Katara huffed. So, what's this, some kind of spear? Sokka asked as Tenzin threw down a glider for one of the airbenders to catch. No, it's a glider, we use them to glide around. I was actually about to have Jinora look around and see if there was any place for us to go fishing for food so we can return home. Naruto said shifting the glider to allow the fabric to pop out. A magic trick, do it again. A child cheered out. It's not magic sweetie. Naruto told the child. Sokka snorted and crossed his arms, last time I checked, humans can't fly. Jinora snorted, I would rethink that statement. She said before she had the wind lift her up a few feet. Oh great, more benders that just give me a headache. Sokka moaned. It was bad enough that Korra and Katara had magic water powers, but now there were more who had breezy abilities. Well, with them at least he wouldn't get wet. Great. We have a band of airbenders, a couple of sloppy waterbenders in the form of my sisters, and together you can all just waste time all day long, grumbled Sokka as he sulked. You're a waterbender. Aang exclaimed excitedly as he turned to Katara, but they were interrupted by the siblings' grandmother. Alright, no more playing, Katara, you and Korra have chores, Gran interjected, causing Katara and her twin to sigh and walk away with their grandmother. Back at the Fire Nation ship as they continued on its way deeper into southern Water Tribe waters, as the sun began to set, its orange-red colors illuminating the skies. Zuko faced off against two of his firebending crew members on deck, while Iroh sat nearby, observing from a distance. Again. He says sternly, watching Zuko shot blasts of fire at them which they ducked under with ease. One retaliated with his own blast that Zuko ducked under, then backflipped over a blast from the other soldier. While in midair Zuko punched and kicked blasts of fire at both of them, but they blocked it as he landed, facing his opponents. Iroh sighed. No. Power in firebending comes from the breath, not the muscles. The breath becomes energy in the body, the energy extends past your limbs and becomes fire. He shot a fire blast that stopped short of Zuko's face, get it right this time. Enough. I've been drilling this set all day. Teach me the next set, I'm more than ready. No. You're impatient. You haven't even mastered the basics yet. Drill it again. Said Iroh harshly as he narrowed his eyes at his stubborn nephew. Zuko growled and turned with a spinning kick, blasting fire from his foot, hitting his target, despite the efforts of his sparring partner made in order to block it. The sages tell us that the Avatar is the last airbender. He must be over 100 years old, he's had a century to master the elements. I'll need more than basic firebending to defeat him. Exclaimed Zuko, only causing to Iroh frown, you will teach me the advanced set. Demanded the banished prince. Iroh hardened his eyes and took a deep sigh before he replied relentlessly, fine, but first I must finish my roast duck. Said the general as he pulled out a bowl and began eating happily. Zuko grimaced as he saw his uncle pigging out. How did he go from strict master to disgusting slob? Thought Zuko as he slammed his forehead on his palm. It was early morning of the next day, and Sokka was having a meeting with his soldiers training as to what to do when facing a firebender. Now men, it's important to show no fear when facing a firebender. In the Water Tribe, we fight till the last man standing, for without courage, how can we call ourselves men? Said Sokka as he walked side to side, and once he finished, he turned to his soldiers. His 6-year-old soldiers. I gotta go pee. One boy announced, raising his hand. Listen. Until your fathers return from the war, they're counting on you to be the men of the tribe, so no potty breaks. Exclaimed Sokka. But I really have to go. The boy protested, holding it in really bad. Sokka sighed. Okay. Who else has to go? And all the kids raised their hands. Sokka slapped his forehead in frustration while thinking we're doomed. As his sisters walked up to him, hey guys, what's up? He asked them. Where are the airbenders? Korra asked him curiously. Well, those 3 young kids are still asleep, but Naruto and Jinora are meditating by the water. They left roughly an hour ago but should be back soon. He told the twins. I see, well I guess we should wait until they come back to tell them about what's happened so far. Katara said. Katara, I'm pretty sure that a couple of kids who are older than us know the definition of extinct and only went to meditate on this and figure out what they need to do. He told his baby sister. Well yay, that's a no-brainer Sokka, but come on, you need to let them think and come to terms with what we told them. Katara responded. Yay, if I was the last waterbender in the world, well one of the last few, I would be pretty devastated as well. Korra said, shrugging her shoulders. Naruto and Jinora sat in meditative positions and peacefully breathed as they allowed themselves to become one with the world around them. Naruto's eyes slowly opened and he released a sigh. I guess there is no choice, we need to find out what happened to the air nomads and then go from there. He said, standing up as Jinora opened her own eyes where she sighed. This is bad, we can't do anything as you were just announced as the Avatar, and we weren't able to leave to begin your training in the elements when the Fire Nation attacked us. We're all that's left of a once proud people, the 5 remaining airbenders. Jinora said. I know, and that's what pisses me off. Naruto said as he lashed out with a blast of wind that struck a wall of ice. An explosion of ice flew into the air and was easily seen miles away. Damn it, Naruto, there's no way people didn't see that. Come on, we need to get back to the village and get Aang and the others ready to leave. She said, grabbing his arm where they quickly fled the area. Not far away, Prince Zuko saw the blast and using his telescope, he saw the Avatar escaping the area with another, heading to the nearest village on the west and headed straight for course. As they reached the village, Sokka pointed at the airbender accusingly, I knew it. You signaled the Fire Navy with that blast. You're leading them here. He didn't do anything. It was an accident. Katara said, defending him from immediate accusations. If I did then I'll take care of it. And yes, I only made that happen because I was angry. So I'm sorry, alright. Naruto growled out. Aha! Sokka shouted triumphantly, the traitor confesses. Warriors away from the enemy, ordered Sokka, making the kid step away from Aang in sadness, while Sokka kept glaring resentfully at Aang, the foreigner and his group are banned from the village. Sokka, you're making a mistake, Korra argued. No. I'm keeping my promise to Dad, Sokka retorted, I'm protecting us from threats like him. I take offense to that actually. Naruto said. Naruto is not our enemy. Katara yelled out to her big brother. Yay, like the Fire Nation wasn't before they started their war that's last for over 100 years. Sokka scoffed. Listen, Sokka, just take a deep breath and calm down, I'm sure there is nothing for you to worry about. Naruto only lazed out because he was hurting. I would too if I wasn't so calm all the time. Jinora told Sokka calmly. Get out of our village. Sokka yelled. Turning towards her gran, she hoped that she would talk some sense into her brother, grandmother, please, don't let Sokka do this. Katara pleaded. Katara, I'm sorry, but this is beyond you or me. Sokka is right. I think it is best if the airbenders leave the village, finalized the elder of the village, while thinking, even if one of them is the Avatar, I cannot risk the safety of the village. Naruto sighed but nodded his head, we understand. Naruto said, accepting their judgment. The twins were stunned at their grandmother's response, couldn't they see that none of the airbenders were dangerous? Katara was angry. Angry at Sokka for being stupid and tyrannical, angry at her grandmother for being so closed-minded. Well, if Sokka could make a decision like this, so can I. Thought Korra, fine. She screamed. Then I'm banished as well. Come on guys, let's go. She said as she took him by the arm and walked off towards Toruk, who snorted a deep huff of air. Where do you think you're going? Sokka questioned, shocked at his sister's actions. To find a waterbender. He's taking me to the North Pole. She yelled back. Naruto blinked. I am? He asked. Yes, now are we staying here to debate our journey or are we gonna go? She asked. Hey, that's fair, you can't leave me behind, I'm a waterbender too, Yakno. Korra said as she raced behind to follow her sister. You do know we have to wake Milo, Aang and Tenzin up still, right? Jinora asked them. Suddenly a black substance began to fall to the sky, causing everyone to stop what they were doing. Black snow. Naruto asked before shaking his head. No, it smells like sulfur, he said, shaking his head. It's ash. He said, looking to Jinora. Ash? She asked in confusion. I was right, you led the Fire Nation right to us. Sokka yelled out. Alright everyone, hide the children. Naruto, you and Jinora go hide with them. Gran said, rushing them away as a large mist came rolling through the village. Naruto and Jinora pulled their hoods up and covered themselves. Is something wrong? Aang asked in confusion. Don't come out until we say it's safe to. Korra said to the young airbender. But I wanted to play in the snow. Milo said. Stay. Korra emphasized to the young boy. Alright fine. Milo relented. Can we still meditate? Tenzin asked. Not right now Tenzin, this is serious. Jinora told the boy. I understand. The boy nodded his head. A huge shadow could be seen through the mist, approaching the village fast. Ah shit, Sokka's voice cracked, watching the ship break through the frozen waters, cracking the ice even further all the way into the village. Katara was about to run for shelter, but saw a kid had fallen, and being in danger for the kid was in the way of the splitting ice, running back to get the kid, just barely rescuing him from the cracking ice. Reaching for a tent, she put him inside and turned to her brother. Sokka was still on the wall with his club raised high, like he was going to attack the ship with it. Sokka, get out of the way. He heard Korra scream. Trust me, I want to were his thoughts, but his pride, determination, fear and stupidity kept him there. The ship finally reached the wall, causing it to fall back, and somehow the part Sokka was standing on stayed intact, sliding downhill in front of the ship. The bowsprit opened down with screech almost crushing Sokka, who barely moved out the way. The steam was clearing up, revealing Zuko and several Fire Nation soldiers in tow, walking down the now gangplank. Standing halfway down the gangplank, Zuko scanned the crowd, looking for someone who looked like, well, Avatar-ish. Meanwhile, Sokka got his bearings straight and charged at Zuko with a war cry. Zuko merely scoffed and easily kicked the club away from Sokka's hand, and then kicked Sokka in the side of his head, sending headfirst into the snow with his legs wiggling in the air, causing entire the tribe gasped in fear at how easily Sokka was beaten. They stepped back as the soldiers reached them, with Zuko still maintaining his sights at the crowd, made of nothing but women and children. Hurry and secure the area. A soldier yelled as the troops responded to the order. It can't be coincidence that we break them out of the ice, light shoots into the sky, and now the Fire Nation is here with their machines. Korra whispers to her sister. Zuko takes off his helmet before addressing the villagers. I am Prince Zuko, son of Fire Lord Ozai and heir to the throne. Bring me all your elderly. He roars out as the soldiers rushed to bring out all the elderly. Adults cried out for the elderly as they were forcefully grabbed and pulled over to form a line in front of the prince. Move. A soldier roared at an elderly woman. Seeing their grandmother being ripped away from them, the twins cried out for their grandmother as she was pushed into the growing group of elders. Grandma. They cried out to her. Search the houses too, leave no place unchecked. Zuko roared out to his men who rushed to fulfill the command. A roar sounded through the village, showing Torek wasn't in favor of the noise. Whatever that thing is, kill it now. A soldier cried out as he sent a large blast of flame at it. Don't do that, he doesn't like being threatened. A villager urged the man, but his advice fell on deaf ears. When the flames died down, the soldier cried out in fear as Torek snapped his neck down and bit the man in half before he could flee. The great Leonopteryx, a worthy fight, but even I know I'm not ready to fight it. Zuko thought to himself. He had thought that his uncle had killed both the last dragon and Leonopteryx while in a three-way fight, but even then things could happen. Call your beast off. He ordered as the villager before someone gave a whistle that allowed the giant predator to calm down. Rushing through the houses, they find babies in little beds but no other elders until they reach the igloo where Naruto and the others are hidden. Naruto watches as his and Jinora's hoods are ripped off and the man looks at them in confusion, and they are told to follow and comply as they are led out the house and to Zuko. Naruto stops a few feet away from the banished prince and speaks calmly. I would take a less aggressive approach when doing such things. Naruto suggested. You're scaring these people. Jinora said to the prince. Who are you? What's your names? He roars out. We ain't telling you anything. Naruto snorts back. Firebenders. Zuko roared out and they were soon surrounded as Zuko's soldiers move into positions around them. I'm taking you to my ship. If you don't come, I'll burn down this village. He told the both of them. We'll come, just don't harm the innocent. Jinora said before Naruto could. Let's go. Zuko commands and the group walk off. When they are gone, a firebender sends a swirl of flame around scaring the villagers before following his leader. When the soldiers and prince had left, Sokka had gathered his sisters and the three little airbenders into the single tent they could use to talk. They were looking for someone with tattoos like those two. Sokka remarked. If they were looking for airbenders, then why didn't they take these three? Korra asked, motioning toddy boys. Because we don't have our airbending tattoos yet. We aren't masters like Naruto and Jinora are. Milo said factually. Yeah, we have to meditate up to 4 days and do some other things before we become airbending masters. Aang said, grinning. We aren't ready for them. Tenzin nodded in agreement. They dragged mom away the same way when we were babies. She wouldn't have watched us being taken away. She would have fought. We found these airbenders. That means they're our responsibility. We should fight. What would you do if they tried to take me or Korra away? Katara asked her brother. I'd kill them all. Sokka growled out. Why? Katara asked her brother. Because you and Korra are family and I won't abandon you. He told her. What do you want us to do, Katara? How are we supposed to save them? They're on a ship. We'd need a miracle to catch them. I know you think everything's going to work out, but I don't. Korra sighed out to her sister in agreement with her broody brother for once. Well, I think the three of you forgot one itty-bitty little detail. Milo smiled at them. Oh yay, and what's that? Sokka asked. We flew into the village on the back of Torek, remember? The young airbender remarked, causing the light to go off in the three water tribe siblings' head. What do you two think you're doing? Interrupted a voice. Surprised, they turned around to see Gran, giving them a stern look before smiling at them. You'll need these. "You have a long journey ahead of you," she said while handing them a blue bundle, shocking the three teens. "It's been so long since I've had hope, but you brought it back to life, my little waterbenders." Gran hugged the twins, then turned to Sokka, "And you, my brave warrior." Sokka stood tall, expecting some sort of praise. "Be nice to your sister." Sokka deflated and barely returned his grandmother's hug. "Yeah. Okay, Gran. Naruto is the Avatar, he's the world's only chance. You both found him for a reason. Now your destinies are intertwined with his. Well, what are we doing standing around here for? We have a rescue mission to do, don't we?" Korra asked as Toph growled. "You just love taking me out of my comfort zone, don't you?" Sokka asked. Back on the warship, both Naruto and Jinora are kept in a room without their bending staffs. The door opens, and Iroh and Zuko walk in with Iroh holding a tray of items. The two airbenders can't see that Iroh is amazed to see a young surviving airbender, let alone two. Naruto clears his throat silently. "What do you want with us?" he questioned the two firebenders. Iroh calmly looks to the young airbender. "My nephew wants me to perform a little test on the both of you," he told Naruto politely. "What kind of test?" Naruto asked. "I assure you, it won't hurt. I've performed it hundreds of times. It only takes a few moments. And then you're free to go. Would you mind if I put a few things in front of you at the table? It will only take a moment," he told them. "That's all you want?" Naruto asked him. "My name is Iroh, and you have my word." The dragon of the west bowed his head. "I'll go first," Jinora said, looking at Naruto to let him know if this test was a trap he could fight back and escape if need be. Seeing this, Naruto nods his head to her. "Bruh." The mighty Leonopteryx bellowed as he flapped his wings to propel himself through the sky. "This is amazing," Korra excitedly called out as she looked out across the southern pole. "You guys ride these things all the time or what?" she asked. "No," Toph follows Naruto's command. "Air nomads are usually partnered with a sky bison, but for some reason he wasn't able to pair himself with one and found Toph instead." Aang said as Tenzin flew the powerful hunter. "Really? I figured you guys would all have one of these things, but I guess each to their own," Katara said, smiling. "Great Leonopteryx are predators, we don't really want to be around things that might eat us," Milo said, grinning. "You know, for once I agree with the shrimp here, I rather like myself breathing and stuff," Sokka said. "Come on Toph, faster," Tenzin urged the beast as it released another roar. Back on the ship, Iroh walks into the room with a tray that holds a candle, a pot of liquid, and a rock. Setting the tray down on the table, Jinora gulps as she walks up and watches as Iroh places the candle in front of her. It doesn't respond to her energy. Calmly moving it out of the way, he pours some of the water on the table, and again it doesn't respond. Wiping the water away, he quickly squeezes it back into the pot and then places the rock on the table, where after a few seconds it doesn't move. Iroh nods to her. "It seems you aren't the one we are looking for," he informs her calmly as he places the rock on the tray next to the pot and candle. "Young man, please step up," he told Naruto. Naruto, now knowing that this test was meant to locate the Avatar, felt very nervous. Each form of the elements would respond to his energy and would move of its own accord to show he was still alive. With no choice, he steps up to the table and watches as Iroh places the candle in front of him. Iroh and Zuko watch in curiosity as the flame flickers and seems to be drawn toward to him, as if trying to embrace him. Iroh and Zuko share a look before Iroh kills the tiny flame. Taking the pot of water, he pours it all out and they watch as the water moves without any command to form a perfect circle on the table. Zuko nods his head in acceptance, but wanting to be sure, he allows the test to finish before saying what he needs. Iroh then takes the rock and sets it down in front of Naruto, and they watch as the stone shifts and moves a bit before it slowly raises itself to stand on end as Zuko excitedly steps forward. "You are my prisoner airbender. I'm taking you back to the Fire Nation," he says to Naruto. "But you just said we were free to go," Jinora says in shock. Iroh shakes his head apologetically. "I apologize. I should have explained further. If he failed the test, as you and all others did, you were both free to leave. But, as it turns out, he is the only one in the entire world who could pass this test. It is truly an honor to be in your presence," Iroh says, bowing to Naruto. "I wouldn't try to escape, this is a warship," Zuko yells out as he slammed his hands down on the table. However, the two airbenders weren't going to leave silently and jumped over the two and out the door as it slammed shut. "Come on, we have to go," Jinora said, racing down the corridor. They of course encounter guards, but they are easily overwhelmed by the experienced airbenders. Grabbing their gliders, they raced up to the deck and watched as Toph landed on a nearby glacier with a growl. As they look around, they see Zuko coming up to them. "There's nowhere for the two of you to run, you can't fly forever, and even then we could easily catch up," he says. However, a powerful gust leaves the group of Fire Nation soldiers blown away as the two air nomads take to the sky, where they land on Toph. "Stop them," A soldier yells out as he bends a tendril of flame at the two escaping airbenders. Don't kill the Avatar, he'll just be reborn again. Zuko roars. Alright, I'm taking over, Tenzin get in the back. He commanded as flames were shot up at them. Tenzin leaps into the back as Naruto grabs Torik's elongated antenna-like parts, yeah. He yells out as the hunter lifts itself up and flexes his mighty wings, roar. And then he leaps off the ice and takes to the sky. The great Leonopteryx, I had thought I had slain the last one. Iroh remarks. I did too, but apparently he's with the Avatar. Zuko growls. It's Alpha at that, I never seen a Alpha before. Iroh admires the beast flying into the distance at incredible speeds, it's beautiful. He says to himself. Uncle, less admiring more chazzing. Zuko calls out. I can't help it, I always wanted to see one. Iroh whispers. Far away from the South Pole, at a Fire Nation naval base, a tall commander wearing the traditional Fire Nation uniform, his black hair was placed in a top knot and thick sideburns on both sides of his face, was in his office, standing, looking at the map that had the insignia of fire on almost every corner of the map as he stood in front of it, chuckling in arrogance. Soon, this war will be over, and the Fire Nation will reign supreme, said the man, only to be interrupted by running steps coming from the corridor. Commander Zhao. A Fire Nation soldier rushed into the quarters, gasping for air as he saluted his higher-up. What is it? The commander turned towards his subordinate. Sir, the spy we have placed in the ship belonging to Prince Zuko has reported to us that the Avatar is indeed alive and seen at the Southern Water Tribe, reported the soldier. Narrowing his eyes, he glared at him, are you sure? Only for the man to nod an affirmative. Turning back towards the map, the commander was contemplating on this new piece of information, and without turning, he gave his order. Take a fleet of 7 ships and head towards the southern tribe to retrieve the Avatar, dead or alive. Slowly turning his eyes at the soldier, he continued, and if the villagers retaliate in capturing the Avatar, burn village to the ground. Sir, what if the prince intervenes? Asked the soldier. Zhao stayed quiet for a few minutes till a small smirk appeared on his face. If he interferes with the mission, then eliminate him as well. The soldier quietly saluted and went out his way to prepare for departure, leaving the commander by himself, chuckling darkly as he stared at the area that was the southern pole. Good news for the Fire Lord, the nation's greatest threat is just a child, Iroh commented. Zuko just glared at the retreating form of the great Leonopteryx as the Avatar continued to fly away. I don't know how that's possible, and I don't know if that makes my task easier or harder, but I know I won't underestimate him again. Follow them, ordered the prince as he turned to his crew. Denora had decided to take over for the flight to let Naruto get some rest. Sitting in the carrier, he silently looked over the 3 young benders as they slept peacefully in the evening. He didn't care what happened to him, for as long as a single airbender lived, the balance would continue regardless. Korra cleared her throat. Why didn't you tell us you were the Avatar? She asked. Well, it may sound redundant to you, but I had just found out I was the Avatar when we were forced into this predicament. He said, it was raining and thundering and was quite frankly terrifying for us as a whole. But it was also on this night that the Fire Nation attacked us. I assumed they were looking for me to try and kill me, but the 5 of us had already fled the area. Torik was fighting back with us and was shot down and into the water. He's not suited for water combat and can't swim all that good, and we were close to drowning. Next thing I know is waking up to see them. He said, motioning to Sokka and Katara. But Naruto. Katara continued, the world's been waiting for the Avatar to return and end the war. The Avatar in question looked down, sulking even further, and how am I supposed to do that? Well, according to legend, you first need to master water, then earth, then fire, right? That's what the monks told me. Well, if you go to the North Pole, you can master waterbending. Korra said excitedly as she nodded in agreement with her sister. Smiling, Naruto said, we can all learn it together. Korra then turned to look at her brother, and you're still coming, right? There'll be plenty of firebender heads to knock on the way, she said in a sing-song voice. Sokka smiled a bit, I'd like that. I'd really like that. Then we're in this together, Katara declared. Alright, but before I learn waterbending, we have some serious business to attend to. Naruto pulled out and opened the map, here, here and here. He pointed to several places. What's there? Katara asked. Well, first is the Southern Air Temple, our home. We need to check and see if there is anything of importance. Second is some fun and recreational things like the hopping llamas, koi fish surfing, and hog monkeys. They don't like people riding them, but that's what makes it fun. He said, finally it's the Western Air Temple to pay respects to the statues of the past avatars. He said, pointing at the map. The siblings looked at each other, then back at the map, then at the avatar, then back at each other. Sounds cool, said Sokka, shrugging his shoulders as he leaned back against the saddle and drifted off to sleep. It took a couple days of traveling, but they eventually made it to the Southern Air Temple. The boys were keeping themselves occupied with games. The older teenagers however weren't as they walked through the temple. Outside the temple, An was chasing a lemur through the grounds with Tenzin and Milo, trying to catch it and play with it. Inside, Naruto was looking around, but suddenly stopped as he saw something he did not expect to see what the room contained. Gasping in shock as he found the remains of many firebenders lying across the room, half buried in snow inside the room. Firebenders? They were here? Muttered the young avatar. Naruto walked over to better inspect the room further as he walked further down and stopped completely as his body was frozen numbed and breath caught in his throat. In the back of the room, illuminated by what little sunlight passed through, was the skeleton of an airbender monk. The robes of the air nomad were old and damaged as they were covered in dried blood, but what shocked him to the very core was that he knew who this corpse belonged to, for he could immediately identify the specific wooden necklace that hanged around the neck of the corpse. "Daiatsu," muttered a crestfallen Naruto as he fell to his knees and began to sob. Grief, anger, sadness, guilt, rage, and hopelessness raged wildly throughout his body as he cried for the death of his people. Inora felt her own sobs bubble up at the friendly monk who she knew for her whole life, dead and rotten before her. Feeling sorry for the two, the warrior slowly walked towards the grieving teens. "I'm sorry, but everything will be alright. Come on, let's get out of here," Sokka said softly as he placed a comforting hand on their shoulder, but in his rage, Naruto's tattoos started to glow as he tapped into the avatar state, causing Sokka to gasp as he was sent back by the air currents that Naruto had unleashed. Forming a dome of air around him as he slowly levitated off the ground. Jinora had also been flung back, also slowly got up as she held on, and recoiled at the sight of her friend. Around the rest corners of the world where a temple of the Avatar was located, a miracle began to happen as each statue or murals of the Avatar began react to Naruto's anger. In an Earth Kingdom temple, a priest was praying in front of a mural of several of the most famous Earth Kingdom Avatar, including Kaioshin, when their eyes started to glow gold. At the North Pole, the water shamans and its people of the Northern Water Tribe watched as a blue light began to flare brightly above the temple. At the Fire Temple in the Crescent Moon Island, the fire sages stared at the statue of Avatar Roku, watching as his eyes glow. Making some of them grow amazed, confused, frightened, and, for a few, hopeful. "Send word to the Fire Lord immediately, the Avatar has returned," ordered the oldest of the sages. Bringing hopes of peace as the statues of previous avatars continued to glow. Inora called out to Naruto as the Avatar state blasted enormous amounts of wind at the group. "Naruto, you're not alone, you have me. You also have Aang, Tenzin, Milo. We are here for you. Please come back." She cried out to him. "I know it's hard to accept this, but Gyatso wouldn't want you to cry over this." Jinora called out. "Yay, me and Korra went through a similar ordeal when our mom died. We know how you feel." Katara called out to the young airbender. "Monk Gyatso and the other airbenders may be gone, but you aren't the last of your nation." Korra called out to him as she covered her face. "You still have us, we're your family now," she told Naruto. However, Naruto wasn't there fully. His spirit had traveled to the spirit world. Looking around, he could hear the others calling out for him, but something told him he was meant to be here. Looking around he notices a large cave and enters it. It is dark and misty inside, and it is hard to see, however, a giant head popped out to reveal a dragon spirit, the Avatar. It asked itself before growling at Naruto, "Where have you been?" It demanded from Naruto. "I don't know, we were attacked, I was told to flee and did so with several others, we were the only ones to make it," Naruto told the dragon. "I see, then the time of resonance is upon us. It is best you go now, while you still can. You are not ready for major trips into the spirit world just yet. But in time, you will be," the dragon told Naruto as he left the spirit world. Naruto slowly begun to float to the ground as the winds died off. This allowed the group to walk up to him and speak softly. "We aren't gonna let anything happen to you," Korra said silently. "As long as we have each other, nothing can happen. We're a team, but more importantly, we're family," Jinora said, wrapping her arms around Naruto with tears streaming down her cheeks. Naruto's tattoos and eyes stopped glowing as he left the Avatar state and looked to the ones who had stopped a very bad situation. "I'm sorry guys. Gyatso was like my father, seeing him like this, it hurt me more than anything I could comprehend," he told them honestly. "It's okay," Sokka told Naruto as he placed a hand on the monk's shoulder. "We understand fully," he said truthfully. "But that also means if firebenders came to this temple like they did on the night we left, then that means they hit the other temples as well. We're the last airbenders," Naruto said looking to Jinora. "I guess that just means we have to ensure none of us die then," Jinora said with a smile. Looking at the numerous statues of the past avatars, Naruto shook his head. "Well, it's bust, Roku's statue isn't doing anything. I guess this means he isn't going to help me just yet," he said calmly as Jinora walked up to him. "Everything's packed. You ready to go?" she asked him. "Yay, just thinking is all," he said before a bellow sounded outside. Was that a sky bison? He asked looking back. Yeah, the boys found a wild herd of them somewhere on the mountain and took a liking to them. Aang has already claimed one of them for himself, a big bull he calls Appa. Tenzin and Milo aren't looking at the others as they're too busy playing with Aang's bison. She told Naruto. We'll bring him too. Gonna need all the room we can get for supplies and stuff, and if my hunch is right, we're gonna have a big group coming with us as well. He said looking to Jinora. Is that your avatar senses telling you this or is it a gut feeling? Another thing, how are you supposed to learn the other elements when the world is locked in a war, fire especially? Sokka asked as he passed a statue of Avatar Yangshan. A bit of both actually. Naruto told Sokka, as for learning the other elements, when an avatar is training, they're supposed to master their natural birth element first before they are revealed to be the avatar and get sent off to train in the other elements. For me, I had mastered my airbending around a month before they revealed my status as the avatar. After this I wasn't able to formally train like I was supposed to when the temple was attacked by the Fire Nation. For Air Pneumatic Avatar the order is the cycle he was born into, air, water, earth, fire which needs to be learned. Some avatars learn differently, but that's the usual way it goes before the cycle moves to the next element. Naruto explained. So that means our trip to the North Pole was already a given due to the fact we met and it's also the element you need to learn. Korra asked as she came in with the boys who were riding balls of air and playing. Boys, that kind of play is forbidden and you know it, take it outside now. Jinora yelled. Why, it's not like the monks can stop us. Aang said shrugging. Yay, but as the oldest and most experienced I think that makes me the one in charge and I say it's forbidden, now outside. Naruto said pointing where the boys raced away. Suddenly a small bat-like animal flew into the room, causing Sokka to jump back and pull his boomerang out. Spider rat. They're poisonous. Get behind me. Sokka cried out as the animal landed on Jinora's shoulder. This little guy won't harm you, he's actually a lemur bat. We usually keep them as pets. She told Sokka petting it gently. I thought lemur bats went extinct a century ago. Sokka said to himself. Extinct? No, there must be thousands of them on this mountain. Naruto laughed as the little guy flew over and landed on his shoulder. Hey little guy, how are you? He said petting it on its head. Well, I think we've stayed plenty. We should go while we still can. Jinora said to Naruto who nodded. Outside Naruto pat the growling Taurak on the head once again as he passed him by and walked towards the stables. He could see that Appa was a young male, roughly 4 or 5 years old, but he was plenty big for major trips like a journey to the North Pole which they were about to venture on. Tenzin raced up to him excitedly. Hey Naruto, are we taking him with us on the trip? He asked happily. Yes, the more room we have and extra space will come in handy if we have anyone else travel with us on our journey and we can carry more supplies if need be too. He said, have you packed all your things? He asked the young bender who nodded his head. Yay, Miang and Milo gathered all our things and put them over there. Tenzin said pointing to a small pile of travel packs. Alright, well I think it's safe to say we can put the carrier onto this big fella's back so you can ride on him. Naruto said as Tenzin nodded happily. The young boy always did like the bison more than his own great Leonopteryx. I'm surprised, there was only about 15 bison here, but I guess the Fire Nation didn't slaughter all of them like they did us. I guess it was too much of a hassle for them. Korra said walking up and looking at Appa. It's forbidden to kill a living sky bison, even for other cultures. I don't know why the Fire Nation would harm such gentle animals. They're raised around us from the time of their birth, so it makes no sense to me why they would kill a sacred animal. Jinora said in thought. Well, I can take a guess as to why, but then again it might also be speculation. Katara said to her twin. They wanted the furs, they're worth a lot of money to the right people. Korra growled out. It's forbidden to kill them though. Sky bison, badger moles, dragons are all protected by sacred law. Naruto told them. Well what about him? Sokka asked pointing to the predator behind Naruto. His kind are a different story, but yes they are. Naruto said honestly. Well what if I told you that all of his kind were hunted down as well? Sokka said causing Naruto to gasp in shock. It was known as the Black Arrow Hunt and they hunted down all of the great Leonopteryx. The Fire Nation hunted them, the dragons and many other creatures until they went extinct. We got lucky with the bison and the lemur bat, but I don't think you'll find any of the others. He told Naruto. That's not right, there were plenty of dragons back when we were little and we certainly didn't hunt them down to kill them. Dragons are usually gentle creatures and only fight when provoked. Jinora said in confusion. Again, thank the Fire Nation for that. For them fighting a dragon and killing it meant incredible fame for killing the ultimate firebender. When the Leonopteryx were killed you had to have a special type of metal to pierce their skin in order to bring them down. Korra told the airbenders. Well, I think that's enough storytelling for one day, it's time for us to go. The Avatar sighed out. Yay, sorry for bringing up bad news like that. Sokka said. It's fine, you didn't have to hide it from us. Jinora said as Naruto nodded. Yay, better to tell us than let us find out later on. Naruto agreed. Finally managing to put a carrier onto the bison's back, which was a battle in itself as this was a wild sky bison who wasn't raised around humans, they managed to load up some food and the airbender's belongings before Katara sat on Appa's head while Sokka and the twins rode on him with Aang and Tenzin, who had decided to keep the lemur bat and name him Momo. Apparently only Milo liked Torek for his colors, let's get going. Jinora said before snapping the reins on Appa and took to the sky with Torek following behind. Their destination, the North Pole, with a few stops along the way. On board Zuko's ship, the prince is meditating in a dark room that only shines due to some candles lit. The candles flare up each time the banished royal exhales and dies down when he inhales. Suddenly the door opens to reveal Iroh. The only reason you should be interrupting me is if you have news about the Avatar uncle. He told him as he opened his eyes. Iroh walks in and smiles softly, well there is news Prince Zuko. He informed his nephew, but you might not like it. He informed him, don't get too upset. He added on. Still meditating Zuko spoke calmly, Uncle, you taught me that keeping a level head is a sign of a great leader. He told his uncle, now whatever you have to say, I'm sure I can take it. Okay then. Iroh shrugged, we have no idea where he is. He told Zuko who stood up and shouted at him. What? The prince cried out as the flames roared up and licked the ceiling as he rounded on his uncle. What happened to keeping that calm and level head? Iroh asked before huffing from the heat, you should really open a window in here. He said fanning himself. Just give the map. Zuko called out snatching it away from his uncle. There have been multiple sightings of the Avatar with a sky bison following him, but it is impossible to keep track of him and his group. Iroh informed his nephew. How am I going to find him uncle? Zuko asked opening the map to look at the locations that the Avatar had been spotted at, he's clearly a master of evasive maneuvering. He said looking at a dozen marks showing where the Avatar had been seen at. But the group, Naruto now Sokka and Korra on Torek's back with Sokka holding the map, you have no idea where you're going do you? He asked Naruto. I do, but in order to keep the Fire Nation off our backs, we have to keep moving around. If we head straight north they'd be on us. Sure it would help us learn faster, but it might also reveal our hand to the enemy. The Avatar said with a serious expression, as for where we're going now, somewhere near the water. He told them. Sokka and Korra looked over the back of Torek's carrier, I guess we're getting close then. Sokka said blankly. We're almost there guys. Naruto said as the island came into his sight. You know, with all the stops we've been making, we won't make it to the North Pole until spring. Korra sighed out. Don't worry, we're fine. At the rate we're going it's not a question of how or when we get to the north, but how soon we can get there. Naruto said. Coaxing his animal guide to land, Naruto was followed by Appa and Jinora who followed after. Once on the ground Naruto urged the boys to go surf on the giant elephant koi in the water. However, it wasn't until something started to eat those massive fish that he began to worry. What if something happened to the boys he was charged to protect? He wasn't exactly keen on saving the world by himself if one of them got hurt. Well he had Jinora, but he wasn't about to force her to do anything on her own. However he could only laugh as he watched Milo jump into the air off his fish as the animal breached the water, taste my fury. He yelled before he quite literally farted in the animal's face, causing the large eel-like creature to begin yapping as it fled. Yay, Milo was always bad about using his trademark fart bending under stressful situations. He honestly felt bad for the animal now. Alright boys bring it in. Naruto told the kids. He just farted and caused it to flee, how does that work? Sokka asked. Don't ask, we don't question his mad methods. Jinora sighed out. What was that thing? Katara wondered. I don't know. Korra said shrugging. Naruto however did know, it's an Anagi. He stepped back toward the group whilst Katara went to check on Aang and the boys as they came in. They're native to these parts, usually leave things alone unless provoked. Well, whatever it is, I'd rather not stick around. Sokka decided, dusting himself off. Time to hit the Ruu what the heck. Everything happened so swiftly. One moment they were standing beneath the trees, listening to Sokka. The next, 4 shadows leapt from the branches and attacked them. In the time that it took Naruto to turn his head Sokka, Katara, Korra, Jinora, even Aang, Tenzin and Momo were all subdued, bound and blindfolded, thrown down to the sands at his feet. Naruto was spared only because he'd been standing near the beach. It gave him just enough time to realize their attackers weren't men as he'd first suspected, but women. No, not even that. Girls. Hey, why are they tied up like that? Milo asked as he landed beside Naruto. Hush Milo. Naruto shushed the boy as he looked to the apparently dangerous women that took down most of the group with effective ease. Oh, Sokka was gonna be so pissed when he wakes up. Hey, maybe one of them would help teach him in the ways of combat like that, help him get out of his airbending mentality. Then the girls turned around to face Naruto. It was impossible to distinguish one from the other, he realized, what with the white makeup that covered their faces entirely, those red and black accents around their eyes lending their visages an almost regal appearance beyond the metal headdress and armored battle dress they wore. These strange female warriors looked at him for a long instant before turning to face him as one, the combined movement causing their armored dresses to rustle, ever so slightly. It was alluring in a way. To say anything less would belittle their strength. "I don't suppose we could sit down and talk about this over a cup of tea?" he asked them calmly. Suddenly, and without warning, one of them attacked. "I guess not." Milo called out as Naruto swung his hand forward and punched the air with the sheer of the shockwave of the strike, summoning forth a great gust, ripping her from her feet and hurtling her across the beach. The avatar sked softly as he watched as the woman skidded across the sands in a tangle of arms and legs. "And we just discussed this like civilized folk." He addressed the remaining three, hoping to refrain from further violence. It was not to be. They struck up their fans and moved to encircle him, but slowly, this time wary of this sudden and unseen burst of power. Their painted faces betrayed very little, perhaps the slightest twinge of concern for their injured kin, but nothing more. "Look, this is pointless," Naruto continued. "You're just going to end up on the ground like her." When the fate of their ally did not dissuade the remaining three warriors, the avatar took it upon himself to strike respect into their proud hearts. Not with close combat, of course, even he might find himself at a bit of a disadvantage when holding back and facing three warriors like this in their native land. One of the women looked at Naruto while holding her stance. "Who are you?" she asked cautiously. "I'm the avatar, and my name is Naruto," he told them, "though I have yet to begin my lessons in learning the other elements." He added to himself quietly. "Gather these people, you come with me." The same girl said to her comrades, proceeded to do as told. The word traveled like wildfire. The avatar had returned. And he was upon Kyoshi Island. One would think it ironic that hearsay could move so swiftly, but it did. Word of mouth passing from a young girl to that of a fisherman on the docks of Kyoshi, from said fisherman to that of an Earth Kingdom trader, work, then a Fire Nation cook, until at long last, those words reached the ears of a certain prince. For a moment, said Firebender could barely believe his luck. Here he had sat down to dinner, resolved to another sleepless night. What? Zuko lurched up from the dinner table, the steaming salmon on his plate now forgotten. "The avatar is on Kyoshi Island." Foolish words, spoken in anger and haste. "Helmsman, change course at once." Unbeknownst to him, another became aware of that location as well. It had been a whole week since the group had arrived at Kyoshi Island, and so far things were going great. Naruto had talked to the elders and had informed them of what had happened the night he went missing, and in turn, he had gained incredible knowledge on the world's happenings since he went missing. Apparently the world had been embroiled in a war for the better part of a century, thanks to Sazen's command of wiping out the air nomads. He knew about the war and the nomads, but he didn't know it was Sazen that had started it. It had something to do with a comet, but other than that they were in the dark. Currently Naruto was doing some light training with the leader of the Kyoshi warriors, Suki, while Jinora continued to instruct Milo, Aang and Tenzin in their native art of fighting. Sokka, Korra and Katara were off doing their own thing, and thus left the airbender to his own. Naruto himself had stated that due to the war being fraught, he would need some destructive techniques despite his heritage teaching him that all life was sacred and battles could be won through peaceful negotiations. Naruto grunted as he parried his opponent's blow, using the same leverage against her to negate the force of her throw. She struggled back, trying to use his own strength against him, but his stance proved simply too solid for her to breach. Likewise, she proved too fluid to grasp without serious effort on his part, effort he wasn't willing to expend just yet. They stood there, a long moment, staring one another down, refusing to yield, to give ground, to back down, to yield. Finally, at an unseen command, they broke apart. "Your stance is getting better, Suki," the avatar found himself commending. "I wish you'd stop holding back," she sighed, straightening and closing her fan. "Hey, if I did that, it wouldn't be any fun." Was it just his imagination, or was that a flush beneath the face paint? He stood in a radically altered version of the Kyoshi battle dress, contoured to fit his male physique. Minus the white face paint, of course. Tradition or not, he simply refused to go through that again. It had been hilarious to see Sokka wearing it yesterday. The poor boy didn't have any skill with a needle, and as such, had been forced to wear something similar to what his sparring partner wore. "Naruto, my lord avatar." Naruto looked up from his sparring session with Suki, momentarily discomfited by that title. Nearly a full week had passed since their arrival. Ironically, he had been the one to argue for their extended stay. He didn't know if it was Suki or the something else, he simply felt drawn here. But what was it? Suki was a nice girl after all, he supposed. She'd warmed to him considerably during the last 7 days, and although he remained loath to admit it, he did enjoy their spars. Naruto rose, wiped the sweat from his brow, and turned to face the messenger standing in the door. Yes, what is it? Fire Nation troops have landed on the island. So much for this peace and quiet. Not Zuko again, Naruto groaned. Zuko? Suki asked as he turned to walk away. He's just some pesky prince I evaded in the South Pole. Naruto replied, donning his normal clothes, don't worry about it. In the meantime, I need you to get Jinora and the others, we may need to bug out if things get heated in any case. He told her. But. Listen, Suki, I won't endanger your island any longer than I already have. A small pang twisted at his heart as he said this. In the lone week that they'd spent here, he'd actually felt normal. To leave that behind and voyage out into the unknown again was strangely disheartening. It was selfish of me to make everyone stay here this long, I've put you all in danger because of that. What, you don't think I can handle a few Fire Nation troops? She challenged. No, I understand that you're a warrior, but firebenders are way out of your league. He told her honestly, and he didn't like the thought of a nice girl like Suki putting herself in danger for him. So you just don't trust me, then? A pained note entered her tone, her painted face seemed strangely sad somehow. Damn it, warrior girl, why wouldn't you listen? He stopped as her hand closed around his wrist, holding him fast. Yes, I'm a warrior. She replied, her voice the barest whisper. Something soft touched his whiskered visage an instant later, but I'm also a girl. Naruto blinked, touching a hand to his cheek. Opened his mouth to speak, but it was already too late. Suki was gone, leaving him with his innermost thoughts. Where the hell had that come from? Strange creatures, women. Truly. He crossed the streets with swift strides, reaching the docks almost in no time at all. Oddly enough, he didn't encounter any firebenders. That was odd in and of itself. The closer he came to the docks the more certain he became they were waiting for him there. The barge didn't even lower its ramp until he was a few feet away. Nevertheless, he prepared himself for battle. Alright, Prince Hothead, he growled, flexing his fingers, are you ready for round 2? I'd call it round 1. A voice that was certainly not the sound of a male stated. The hell, Naruto stated in confusion. Naruto was expecting Zuko to step off that ship and face him. Not a girl. Certainly not someone his age. Sheesh, first Suki and those Kaioshin warriors, and now this. Why did he seem to be facing the opposite sex as of late? Was fate messing with him or something? It must be. So he stood there and watched wary as this newcomer surveyed her surroundings. There was something dangerous about her. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, perhaps it was her aura. Or maybe it was the eyes. In any case, Uzumaki Naruto, avatar of the gods, found himself just a touch uncomfortable. So, this is Kaioshin Island. The girl murmured to herself as she disembarked. It seems father was right to plant that spy on Zuzu's ship after all. And now I've beaten him to the punch. How wonderful. She extended her slim shoulder in a shrug. Honestly, what more could a girl ask for? Suddenly wary, Naruto edged a foot forward. This girl wasn't like the others he'd fought. You're not Zuko. The girl saw him and smiled then, it was a soft, deadly, dangerous thing, that smile. Well, what do we have here? She chuckled. You mean to say you're the avatar that I've heard so much about? Her gaze roamed across his body with intrigue, a spark of interest shining in those dark orbs of hers. You certainly are handsome, I'll give you that. But you should be humbled. A hand rose in a bursting flourish of blue flame. You have the honor of addressing Azula, Princess of the Fire Nation. I do hope you've prepared yourself. For? Why, for the fight of your life, of course. Azula said it as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. You didn't think I rushed here ahead of my brother, just to have tea now, did you? She asked him. Despite his better judgment, Naruto actually blanched behind his guard. Then his vision swelled with blue fire. What's wrong, Avatar? Azula laughed arrogantly as the blonde backpedaled steadily in retreat. Afraid of a little fire? You should be. Now hold still. She called out to him as she sent another wave of blue fire at him. And let you burn me? I think not. Naruto stubbornly resisted the urge to give in to his own anger and attack, refused to play to his enemy's strategy. Instead he continued to bob and weave, leading the proud princess on a winding path further and further away from the village. Avatar or not, he wasn't willing to risk innocence just for the sake of his own glory. But this was swiftly becoming annoying for him. He thought to lead Azula and her troops away from the village. In that at least, he'd been partially successful. Azula had chased after him like a moth to flame, leaving her troops to remain behind. Even now he could see the fires beginning to burn in the village, tongues of ember creeping through those thatch roofs, their rosy hues mingling with that of the setting sun. He silently prayed Suki had made it to Aang and the others in time, that they'd be able to handle themselves. Of course they would. They had Suki and the Kaiashi warriors backing them up after all, and it wasn't as though they couldn't handle a few firebenders, he hoped. But that left him dealing with the princess. Alone. He was swiftly beginning to regret that decision. Azula wasn't a damn thing like her brother. These strikes of hers were precise and perfect, hardly a flaw to be seen amidst them. And that was without the firebending. Those grand sweeps of fire, those azure flames, were proving a great deal warmer than he would have liked. A mere trifle to deal with at full strength, but if he were to do that here, he'd wreck the entire island. Perhaps even destroy it altogether. Still, they came closer and closer, those blows did. With each instant he dodged, singing hairs and leaving burns, albeit small ones, appeared upon his face. Injuries he was certain would take days to heal. Days, instead of seconds. He felt every near miss, every burn that seared itself into his visage. And he endured. Never once did he strike back, ever retreating, always on the defense until he was certain, absolutely certain, that he'd escape the blast zone, given Kaiashi village an acceptable radius of distance. Finally, enough was enough. "I think that's enough playing around," he said. His hand shot forth to meet Azula's, the first direct confrontation since she tried to attack him back in the village. Flame met a headwind, and the former yielded, snuffed out like a candle in the wind. A heartbeat later. All that remained was the faintest wisp of steam curling outward from her first. The princess frowned, but quickly regained her confidence when the monk drew back and adopted a airbending stance. He was going to fight firebending with airbending. Then he was gone with the wind. When he moved, she barely saw him. But the surprise grunt, the light-skinned princess went flying down the training ground, a trail of dark blood following her body through the falling debris. Naruto breath caught in his throat, hitching as he struggled and failed to suppress a laugh. He watched as Azula's limp body slammed against the stones once gravity took hold of her skin skidding across the ground as the momentum continued to drag her over the earth. Her feet were suddenly free from the ground as a burst of fire from palms carried her over the sun-soaked terrain, stopping her just short of smashing into a nearby boulder. She wasn't hurt, just annoyed with how he had hit her. Not to mention pissed. "So you've finally decided to fight back?" Azula didn't even bother to keep the smile from her face as she picked herself up. "It's about time." Naruto risked a glance for his surroundings. Kaiashi could be seen on the shoreline, only a few miles away now. "It would have to do, something like that, yes," he replied. "We've retreated to an acceptable distance, in any case." "Oh?" A delicate brow arched in benign amusement. "And here I thought you were running away, but you were trying to save the village, weren't you? How quaint." She chuckled, then, it sounded oddly girlish emerging from the mouth of a hardened killer such as herself. "Well played, Avatar." Her congratulations dripped with derision. "Well played indeed. But it doesn't matter, not really. My men are the best of the best. If those peace-loving Kaiashi warriors refuse to see reason and surrender, they'll simply burn your precious village to the ground. Of course, if you surrendered yourself, I could always convince them to put the fires out." "Is that so?" "It is." The blonde smugness infuriated her, but Azula refused to let it show. "So what do you say, Avatar? If you come quietly, I might be able to put in a good word for you with Fire Lord Ozai." "Oh, isn't that kind of you?" Naruto's words dripped with false sweetness. "And to what do I owe this kindness?" To his surprise, Azula actually flushed. "Is it so wrong for me to be kind to a potential captive?" "On so many levels." Naruto's deadpan was barely concealed. "Well, in that case, I hope you enjoy watching your precious village burn. Actually, you might want to take another look." The blonde raised a long finger and pointed. "I don't think your boys will be burning anything anytime soon." Against her better judgment, Azula did just that. What she saw there astounded her. There, rising in the distance, was some sort of sea serpent. There could be no other word for the giant Inagi. And then, to her dismay, it actually spewed water from its open maw, dousing the burning village within the blink on an eye. Its duty done, and the flames extinguished, the Inagi tossed back its head and loosed a final triumphant cry before disappearing back into the ocean's depths. Azula saw that her plans had been thwarted, felt her tenuous grasp on the situation slipping away. But how?" she spluttered. "You know, that's the exact same look Zuko wore when I escaped his clutches." Naruto's grin grew another inch. "With the fires put out, I'm free to fight you without anything holding me back. But before I kick your ass, I have one last question. Whatever did happen to all Prince Hothead? I was certain he'd be the one to find me first." "You mean my fool of a brother?" Azula scoffed, ignoring the flicker of shock that passed through the blonde's visage. "I'm not certain. When my spy reported you appearing here, I ordered him to cripple engine. In any case, my little delay gave me all the time I needed to get here beforehand. And if he does somehow find his way here, I'll simply comply with the Fire Lord's demands and lock him away. Barring that, I'll kill him myself. We've no use for that failure of a prince." At that thought, she frowned. "Why are you so concerned for him, anyway?" Just idle curiosity, I suppose. Something in the Avatar's tone suggested otherwise and Azula knew she'd struck a nerve. You really are ruthless, ain't ya? His words were cold. Deadly. Willing to sacrifice anything in the name of duty, even your own brother. Once, that would have disgusted me. It probably still does. But I've got to admit, that's some frightful determination there. If you weren't my enemy, I'd respect you for it. Azula smiled tightly and tucked his stray hair back into place, the picture of perfection once more. Why, thank you. She replied. I must admit, you've done a fairly decent job of mucking up my plans thus far. It's not all that often I have to get my hands dirty. It felt strange to be complimented by her adversary. Many of her enemies were either too arrogant to admit their own flaws or simply too afraid of facing her wrath to loosen their tongues. That this Avatar had done so to be respected by her enemy, it made her curious. Just who was this young man? I would very much like to know your name, Avatar. The words escaped her before she could take them back, her initial interest getting the better of her. For the first time since they'd met, the blonde actually looked to be at a loss for words, if only for a moment. Naruto. He supplied at last. I'll be sure to remember it. Shall we continue, then? Naruto resumed his stance once, but there was something off about it. His foot was too far forward and his arms were spread wide. Didn't he see he was full of openings? But if he was hoping to make her hesitate, he had another thing coming. Azula never backed down from any challenge. We shall. Their fists met in small explosions of azure as well as gusting gales, colliding over and over again, wind and fires rippling outward in every direction to scar the landscape, scalding neither. To her dismay, Azula actually found her flames being overwhelmed by the Avatar's mastery over his native element. Unthinking, the Fire Princess lashed out again, intent upon incinerating him on the spot. Nope. Azula frowned as the Avatar inhaled, and her flame simply died. Impossible. He'd sucked the oxygen out of her attack. Even as she realized that the Avatar was in motion, flinging a hand forward, his palms closing around her wrist, locking down with enough force to shatter bone. Azula cried out and flung 2 fingers toward, a bolt of jagged lightning leaping from her fingertips. The monk didn't even bother to release her, he just dipped one hand down, caught the hand holding said bolt, and redirected it with a single hand, sending her penultimate technique hurtling off into the distance. In that same instant, she opened her mouth and spat. Whoosh. It was with a small pang of regret that she spewed a curtain of flame right at his face and burned his head to ashes. The vice on her wrist slackened, and his body toppled away despite all she'd said. She'd hoped to avoid killing him. Such a shame. Now they'd have to search for him all over again. A distance away, Naruto was actually unharmed, despite the fact he was patting flicks of blue flame rapidly to stop them from hurting him. He had barely escaped, but he needed to inform the gang of this new player. He listened as he heard Azula mutter some curses as she couldn't find a corpse and then fled. With that as his cue, Naruto took off for the village. He needed to tell them. The group never paused to consider the consequences of their fight. The ramifications. There simply wasn't any time to dwell upon it. Kaiashi Island was saved, but their time there was done. Although they had defeated the Fire Nation and forced them away from the island, they knew that their very presence would attract unwanted attention. And so the group departed, first thing the next morning. They barely even had time to say goodbye to the Kaiashi warriors. Suki, strong girl, that one knew that the group could tell that she wanted to come with, but she knew her duty lay with her people, to help them rebuild and garrison themselves against the threat. So her heroes departed, leaving her behind. Or so they thought. Turns out Kaiashi warriors rival assassins in terms of stealth. By the time they realized she'd stowed away under one of the tarps, they were already halfway to the nearest settlement. That certainly made things amusing when the others discovered her. Sokka groaned as he noticed more food missing from their supplies. Okay, who's eating midnight snacks? He asked, turning around to face the campfire below. Sokka, nobody has eaten anything. Korra sighed. You sure, cuz I'm seeing a lot of our stuff missing. Sokka said. Naruto groaned. Oh, for the love of Naruto growled as he stood up and walked over to try and make sense of what Sokka was talking about. However, he paused when noticed that indeed some of their food was missing, and definitely not what they were eating. He's right, guys, someone or something is eating our food. He said. Hinata, Katara, and Korra all got up and walked over. The boys weren't worried as they didn't understand the problem that they were facing. Korra paused as she looked at the lower amount of food than what was had yesterday. He's right, some of the food's missing. She said. Well, how do we find the thief? Katara asked. It's simple, we watch and wait. Sokka said. Naruto snorted, not likely. Who would want to watch food? It's simply easier to just go through our things and find the stowaway. Naruto told the Water Tribe warrior. Standing up, he pulled the cover off the food to reveal nobody there. Hovering it back up, he moved to packs that had the other things they had brought, and Naruto paused when he saw a couple of familiar fans and packed them up. "I think I know who our traveling companion is, guys," Naruto said quietly, holding the two fans up. "Play along." He said quietly to them, "Well, seeing as they aren't on Torque or on Appa, at least they were kind enough to leave these fan good source of kindling," he stated before something whacked him on the head from behind. "Ow!" he cried out, holding his hand to his head. "You will not burn the last relic of Lady Kakashi, are you nuts?" A very familiar face cried out to him. "Hey, Suki, nice to see you too," Naruto groaned out. "Suki?" the group called out in surprise. "Hey guys, sorry you had to find me this way, I was hoping to surprise you in Amashu," she told them. "Well, you can't really surprise us when some of the food goes missing and nobody has eaten any," Sokka said as he watched Suki drop the airbender staff she had taken the time to use on Naruto and take back her fans. "Well, I only came because I felt as if there was someone urging me to travel with you guys. I couldn't help it, and after talking with my fellow Kakashi warriors, I decided to tag along. I felt like my purpose in life was to help you guys learn a fighting style which suited you," she said. "Well, I don't know about Naruto since he's the Avatar, but I'm down for some lessons," Sokka said. "Couldn't hurt to learn techniques which could come in handy down the line," Jinora agreed with the water boy. "I have a question though, why come with us besides the obvious call to arms?" Katara asked her. "You inspired me, guys," she continued, her voice gaining force with each word. "Until the day we met, I thought Kakashi was all that mattered. There was nothing else. No one else. I didn't care about the Fire Nation or about the war. Heck, I'd been convinced the Avatar didn't exist until Naruto showed up. But you proved me wrong. I decided to leave Kakashi because of you. You showed me I have much to learn, reminded me that there's an entire world out there for me to see. A world that will be destroyed by the Fire Nation if something isn't done." Her words were so impassioned by the time she finished, all of the group was literally left in awe. "Well, seeing as you're already with us, we don't really have a choice, and with the Fire Nation trailing after us, I don't really feel like backtracking to your home with the chance of running into either Zuko or that girl who used blue fire," Naruto said, sighing deeply. "Torque will carry you on his back for as long as we travel. If anyone else joins, we'll split them between Appa and Torque. Beside out, tomorrow we'll continue on our way to Amashu like I told the others. Come, you must be hungry," Naruto told her as he motioned to the campfire, "and a bit cold if you shivering is anything to go by," he added. "The Great Leonopteryx is the apex aerial predator and bender. Not only rare, but the sightings tend not to get reported," Iroh explained to his nephew. "I would assume they wouldn't be able to get the report of such a sighting out," Zuko said, looking at a painting, a large flying predator similar to the one that the Avatar rode upon, only this one was a pure white and black color. "Indeed, that is the usual happenstance with the Great Leonopteryx. What did the air nomads call the one that the Avatar was spotted with before he fled?" Zuko questioned, looking over some old writings from when the air nomads still thrived plentiful. "It was named Torque by the Avatar when he found it as a hatchling. Apparently it was the only one that never attacked a human," Iroh told the prince. "Last Shadow." Zuko translated the name, he used old name for it. He added. "It suits it perfectly. Usually when people encountered a Great Leonopteryx, it was almost always the last shadow one would see before they perished. I saw one take out a warship once. Wham. It was over before it could begin. Ate the crew like peanuts." Iroh recalled with a shiver, "It was amazing how it managed to do something so natural yet terrifying," he told his nephew. "It's a shame that all the black arrows could be used once before they broke and deteriorated quickly. I would have liked to hunt it down, but with it being the last one, it'll only live for as long as its master will, so it's only a matter of time before it perishes," Zuko said. "It tends to get harder for the older members of the species. I only managed my victory against a Great Leonopteryx after watching it battle a dragon for almost a week. The ultimate firebender fought viciously for its life, but even its power was nothing compared to that of the ultimate airbender and destroyer," Iroh recalled. "What was it like, witnessing such a battle?" Zuko questioned. "It was both beautiful and terrifying. Sensual yet mystical. Watching the elements bend and move with just a twitch of a limb, those two fought like it was the end of the world. Tore up a whole island and left it barren and scarred once it was said and done," he told his nephew. "Was it like the one the Avatar rode on, a leader?" "No, it was not alpha of the species like the Avatar's was. See, for a Great Leonopteryx, leaders aren't chosen or brought in, they're born. A alpha holds more power, more fury, more everything in it than any of its brethren. I have no doubt that had the one I encountered been a alpha, the fight would have ended far quicker, I would hazard to say in about a couple hours, maybe less. That is the power of Alpha Leonopteryx, they aren't to be underestimated by any means. To provoke them is to provoke death. We lost many firebenders to the alphas of the species, even with the black arrows on our side," The sheer fury they unleashed even with a black arrow embedded into their weak spot shows that they aren't as weak as the others would be. The last alpha that was killed required over a dozen black arrows to put it down, but even when it was on the ground, it caused significant damage to the hunters and surroundings before it perished. It was a waste of both time and resources to hunt it down. And the ores required to make such a weapon are both rare and expensive. It's best to leave it to its own devices for now, right uncle? Indeed. Let sleeping platypus bears lie, I say. A lot healthier for everyone too. The tea lover stated. A couple days prior. Naruto sighed as he laid on his friend. I don't want to see another firebender for a long time. He said as Torque growled. What happened to you? Sokka asked looking at the scorched airbender. I ran into a close associate of our southern prince, though I wouldn't really call her a friend of his. He grunted out. Geez, this chick must have been batty. Korra said looking at the slightly singed hair. Licking a couple fingers she then clasped them around and watched as the slight flame was put out. I wouldn't call her batty, more like okay yeah batty. The Avatar conceded. Well, we better get going, Amashu isn't going to wait for us. Jinora smiled. Yay, I just wish Bumi was still around to see us come back. Naruto said nodding his head. Bumi? Who's that? Katara asked. The old friend of ours. We're just going to pass through Amashu and pay our respects to him and maybe even talk to the current king and see if he'd be willing to give me basic lessons on earthbending. Naruto said, I know he won't be my teacher, I can feel that much, but knowing some of the basics won't hurt me. Naruto told the group as they each piled onto either Appa or Torque with a certain Kaiashi warrior sneaking her way into the pack. At night when they landed to make camp, Naruto once more dreamed. He dreamed of swimming through the ocean. As he swam he noticed a large shadow swim above him. Swimming up he looked around through the dark waters, turning around to search for the light of day he witnessed the largest eyeball he had ever seen open itself up as a deep gravely voice spoke to him. The true mind can weather all the lies and illusions without being lost. The true heart can touch the poison of hatred without being harmed. Since beginning less time, darkness thrives in the void, but always yields to purifying light. In the era before the Avatar, we bent not the elements, but the energy within ourselves. To bend another's energy, your own spirit must be unbendable or you shall be corrupted and destroyed. Before the eye glowed a bright green causing Naruto to wake with a gasp, his eyes glowing a bright gold color for but a moment as his Avatar state activated itself. What was happening to him? Why was he always seeing such things lately? First the dragon, then whatever had spoken to him. He didn't know if these dreams were premonitions or anything of the like, but it was starting to terrify him. Currently. Naruto groaned as he looked at the three troublesome brawler boys. Sokka, the twins, Jinora were currently being restrained with their hands being held up, while Suki was staying with the boys to ensure they didn't cause any more mischief than they already did when they rode the mailing system, broke the cart of cabbages among other things, trying to have fun. You say what now old man? He asked a hunched over monarch that appeared to be in his mid to late 80s or 90s. It's just a simple test. You help me, and I will help you. The old man said, and as a bit of incentive, I'll have these be used as a timer. He said holding up his hands where several colored rings floated up, genomite, also known as the creeping crystal. By placing these on organic material such as skin, the rock grows at an astounding rate. He said putting the rings on each of his restrained traveling companion's fingers, I would say they have until nightfall before they are consumed by the crystals. The king told Naruto. Sokka cried out as the ring on his hand began to grow. Ah, it's already creeping. He cried out in horror. Indeed, it is as I said, an astonishing work of nature. The king said. Alright, so you know I'm the Avatar, what is it you want me to do? Naruto asked. Follow me young bender. The king said as he turned around and began to walk away. Your first test is quite simple, yet quite vexing if I say so myself. He told the Avatar. Leading him to a cave followed by his band, Naruto looked around and saw that there was a large amount of stalactite and stalagmites throughout the cave. In the center of the cave was a large waterfall with a ladder submerged in the middle of with something else hanging above it. Oh dear, it seems I've lost the key to my lunchbox, could you fetch it for me? He asked the young bender. Naruto rolled his eyes, yeah I'll get your stinking key. He grumbled before he leapt across the cavern. Now he knew how he was gonna get the key, he was just against how he was gonna get it. Spinning his staff around he began to gather a large amount of wind. Thinning it out he leapt up and kicked a stalactite and then slashed with his staff. The blade of wind cut both water and chain, while the rock was quick to catch the chain where it embedded itself in the wall over the king's head. Enjoy your lunch old timer. He said as he glided over. Now, what's the next challenge? He asked as he landed. Naruto, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but could you please hurry, I really don't want to be a one-armed warrior. Sokka whimpered out. Your next test is a daunting task. The kind told him as he led them to a large pen, "It seems had I've lost my dear pet Flopsy Wopsy, I do miss him so much," he said, trying to play the worried old pet owner. "Flopsy?" Naruto asked. "Why does that name sound familiar to me?" he asked. "I don't know, it seems familiar to me too," Jinora muttered. She only knew one person who had a pet by that name, but he was probably long dead by now. Jumping in, he noticed a large animal with big floppy ears. "This isn't Flopsy, it's a baby bunny," he muttered to himself but shrugged. "Is this him?" he asked the king, pointing to the animal. "Possibly, but we'll never know," the king hummed out. "But if you have found him, please bring him here. Daddy wants a kiss from Flopsy," he called to Naruto. Naruto shrugged his shoulders and went to grab the animal, only for something bigger to land behind him. "I knew it," he muttered as he grinned. "Flopsy," he said, reaching out to the goat gorilla as it licked his hand, all but confirming that little Flopsy had indeed grown into a very big Flopsy. "Hey Bumi, when were you gonna tell me Flopsy got so big?" he called out. The king, "No," Bumi laughed, "I see your wits are as strong as ever," the king said as he bent a staircase down to the pen. "It's been a long time, Naruto," he said as the group came down with Jinora holding a shocked look on her face. "It warms my heart to be able to see you after all this time." Yumi smiled as he bent the rock holding his friends captive, allowing it to crumble where he bent several chunks of it in the air around him. "You guys haven't changed a bit," he told them as he hugged Jinora and Naruto, "literally," he added with a familiar snort. "So all of this was a way for you to what, catch up with them?" Suki asked. "In a way," Yumi said to her, "it's been a century since I saw any of my friends, and I wanted to make sure he could do what needed to be done if anything happened to you." He passed the first test by actually using the air as a weapon, something airbenders take no pride in doing and absolutely forbid in their own culture. Yumi said, "I expected him to flee from old Flopsy, but he figured out pretty quick that Flopsy was always a big boy and liked playing sneak attack on those he liked. I was going to have him fight somebody, and I knew he would have probably chosen me, but I guess everything worked out as it should have," Yumi said, smiling. "So what was this ordeal with the creeping rock?" Korra asked curiously. "Scare tactic mostly. Not only that, but Genomite is a type of rock candy and makes a delectable treat, try it," he said, holding some out to the group. "Sure, thanks," Sokka said as he took a chunk and bit into it where his eyes lit up. "This stuff is amazing," he called out as Bumi snickered some more. "Yumi, you're still a mad genius even after all this time. Your age just honed that brilliant mind of yours." Jinora smiled at the old earthbender. "I know, praise it some more," he said, fluttering his eyes at her. Your Highness, can I ask you something?" Tenzin asked the old leader. "Of course, young man, we are all friends here. Did any other airbenders escape besides us? I just want to have some closure if any did or didn't," he said. "I'm afraid not, as far as I know you are the last ones left alive," Bumi said, shrugging at the young boy. "I see, thank you." Tenzin bowed. "Naruto, you have a difficult task ahead, and as the Avatar you know that the mastery of all four elements must be learned. When you confront Fire Lord Ozai, I only hope you think like a mad genius," he said, smiling to Naruto. "Oh, believe me, I will," he told his old friend. "Now, before we hit the road, can you give me a few tips on earthbending? Not a whole set of lessons, just some basic knowledge if you will. I want to learn what I can seeing as I already have airbending under control," he said. Yumi shook his head. "I'm sorry, but what lessons of earthbending you are seeking are not yet ready to be given. Not only that, but you need a teacher that controls absolutely neutral Jing. I am still trying to learn how to control it and have yet to succeed in gaining such a control. I believe that you must go to the Northern Water Tribe before trying to learn anything other than the natural element that follows your cycle," Bumi said, shaking his head. Naruto didn't hesitate to nod. "No, you're right. Trying to rush my training won't get me far. Thanks, Bumi. Though that doesn't mean I won't try learning the other elements beforehand and then trying to learn to control them," he stated as Bumi chuckled. "Oh, I know that much. You're too stubborn to not try it," Bumi snorted out. "Naruto, while we have time, it's best to leave," Korra said to him. "Well, there is still time for us to do one more thing," Bumi hummed. 30 minutes later, the old king was seen sliding through the mail delivery system with his oldest friends, though that one guy with cabbages was seriously thinking of relocating to Ba Sing Se for his trouble. "Hey guys, seeing as we are heading north, maybe we can liberate a couple of the mining towns there as we head north," Sokka said as the two mighty beasts of transportation flew through the heavens. "It might do us some good, and hey, who knows, maybe we'll learn some things while we do it," Katara said with hope in her eyes. "I say we simply just fly north, why waste time fighting a fight we might not win?" Milo said. "Milo, the people of the Earth Kingdom need help, would you like it if it was the air nomads that were in this situation?" Jinora asked the boy. "Well no, but alright fine, we can liberate them," the boy huffed as he crossed his arms while Jinora smirked. "You're cute Milo, but you still have much to learn from us," she said to the young boy. "Don't talk down to the greatness that is Milo," the boy cried out with red cheeks. "Naruto, I think there is a mining town just over there, try and get us clothes," Katara said as she pointed in a direction. Sis, try pointing that way," her twin said moving her arm to the opposite direction. "Okay fine, that way," the waterbender huffed. "Fine, but we have to land before we get too close and hide our friends, they're too large and will reveal us before we get close enough to fight, which'll put us at a disadvantage," Naruto said, steering his animal guide to the east with a growl coming from the flying predator's throat. "I wanted to thank the great General Iroh and young Prince Zuko for dining with us. As you know, the Fire Lord has banished his son, the prince, and renounced his love of him and will not let him return to the throne unless he finds the Avatar. The Fire Lord believes his son is too soft and by doing this, he will become strong and become a worthy heir to the throne," the man said as he looked over to the said duo. Zuko subconsciously bends a flame from a candle on the table. Iroh notices this, then holds his hand to calm him down. The man smirks, "I commend the Fire Lord's discipline. For example, it seems I need to remind Prince Zuko that, during his banishment, he is an enemy of the Fire Nation and is not allowed to wear the Fire Nation uniform. But we will let him wear it today, like a child wearing a costume. Commander Zhao, I would like for you to show proper respect to my nephew. Regardless of his status, he is still of a higher standing than you. Do not forget that he has already beaten you in several Anikai matches," Iroh said, sipping on a cup of jasmine tea. "Or should I be the one to show you how I got the name, the Dragon of the West, before I let my nephew finish what you keep trying to do to him?" the elder asked calmly. "Oh no General Iroh, no such demonstration is needed," Zhao said nervously. "Then I am glad we have come to understanding. Even in exile, my nephew has more honor than the likes of both my brother and you by 1,000-fold," Iroh said as he and his nephew stood up to leave. "I thank you for the tea, it was delicious," he said with a bow. As they left the area, Zuko growled, "Why didn't you just let me fight him?" Zuko asked. "Because it would have ended the same way it always has, with him lying on the ground in defeat, but if it came to that I would have had you walk away before I killed him myself. He is honestly starting to piss me off and I'm the gentle one in the family," Iroh said with a huff. "I see, thank you uncle," Zuko whispered, though Iroh still heard him and gave a small smile. "I will always be there for you Prince Zuko, never forget, we are family and family must stick together no matter what the situation is," Iroh told his nephew. As Toric landed on the ground, the gang was quick to climb off and look around for any surprises that might pop up. They were lucky that nobody had come and were quick to begin journeying to the nearest colony, which they had no idea if it was named. However, as they were walking through the woods, the sound of clamoring feet could be heard along with the clanking of armor. "You guys, I think we're about to have company," Jinora said. "Yay, I hear them too, should I fartbend in their faces?" Milo asked. "No Milo," several voices called out. "Oh, you guys never let me have any fun," the boy pouted. Suddenly a young teenager ran out from a section of trees and quickly hid in their group while some Fire Nation troops came out shortly after. "What the hell is this?" Sokka asked in confusion. "Pull your hood up," Jinora hissed to her fellow airbender master as she quickly covered their heads to keep hidden. The boys didn't have to, seeing as they had yet to gain their airbending tattoos. "Beats me, looks like a bad game of tag," Korra said to her brother. "Stay hidden," Katara urged the young man. "Please move out of the way, that boy is under arrest," one of the soldiers stated. "For what?" Tenzin asked, stepping up to them. "For earthbending stones at us, they hurt a lot Yakno," the same soldier responded. "He can earthbend?" Korra asked in surprise, the boy wasn't dressed like a earthbender. "We don't like enforcing the law, but we have no choice. It was declared forbidden by Fire Lord Ozai," a second soldier said, rubbing the side of his head. "Now please let us fulfill our duties so we can take him back to his village to be detained," he finished. Katara pops open her water pouch and bends the water at the soldiers, causing them to get in a defensive stance. "She's a bender," a soldier called out. However, when she bends the water a particular way, the sound of crackling ice could be heard. Why weren't the soldiers trapped like she wanted? She turned to the sound of where the ice came from and grew red in the face. "Sokka's arms and chest are encased in ice instead, much to his frustration, Katara," he called out to her. "Nice going Slick," Korra said to her twin as they were marched to the village under the Fire Nation troops' watchful eyes. "Can't say she didn't try though," Aang snickered. "Shut up Aang," Katara grumbled. "What, it's a compliment," the young boy said. "Yay, but let's keep those thoughts to yourself alright sweetie," Suki said, patting his bald scalp. As the gang are taken to the prison camp just outside a village, Naruto looks around and notices the poor condition of the village and its people. They are soon shoved through a gateway of a tall metal fence, where the gate closes with a clash of steel meeting steel. They are trapped. They look around and notice that the people are downtrodden and broken in spirit. While they don't move, they watch as the boy surges over to a man that resembles him and they embrace. With no other option, they simply sigh as a collective, except Naruto, who growls in anger. The sound of footsteps draw their attention and watch as the young boy they were brought in with walks over with the older man. "This is my father," he said, motioning to the man. "Greetings, young ones," he said politely. "So this is the Fire Nation's plan, suppress all other forms of bending," Suki whispered. "If that's the case, we need a plan of escape," Sokka stated with a grim shake of his head. Naruto shakes the man's hand. "How did this happen to your village?" he asked the man. The man took a deep breath and let it out with a sigh of defeat. "The Fire Nation sent soldiers. We fought them and defeated them. Then they sent their machines, huge machines made of metal. There was nothing we could do. Those who could not bend were allowed to live in peace if we were imprisoned," he told Naruto. Naruto looked around and stepped forward. "Earthbenders." He called out loudly to each of them, "Why are you acting this way? You are powerful and amazing people. You don't need to live like this. There is earth right beneath your feet. The ground is an extension of who you are." He told them, only for them to do nothing and brush his words off. Why would they listen to a child when they were defeated so easily by the power of the Fire Nation? The airbenders sighed. "If the Avatar had returned, would that mean anything to you?" he asked them. One man snorted in disbelief. "The Avatar is dead. If he was here, he would protect us," the man said to Naruto. Naruto lifts his hood off his head. "I am Naruto, an airbender born 100 years ago, and I am the Avatar," he announced to them all. "It's time for you to stop doing this," he called out to the people. "If you are the Avatar, then you must die," a Fire Nation soldier yelled out as he ready to attack. However, Katara rushed over to the soldier and pushed him where he stumbled and fell. "Leave him alone," she yelled out to him. The soldier gets up with an angered look. Reaching out to grab Katara, he is sent flying away by a blast of air as he began to bend the wind around him, surprising the earthbenders and soldiers at the same time. "How is he doing that?" a soldier cried out in shock. "We don't want to hurt any of you, but we will if we have to," Naruto told the soldiers. "All airbenders should be dead. Kill him. Firebenders, positions," a commander roared out. "Boys, take out the trash," Suki growled. "Yay!" Milo cried out as he leapt up into the air, causing the soldiers to look up as he came soaring down at them, where he turned and faced his rear end at one particular soldier's face, where the soldier went to say something only for Milo to call out, "Taste my fury," where he released a powerful fart that caused the soldier to get sent flying back and crash into a wall. "Ah, you caught me with my mouth open," the soldier gagged in disgust. "Milo, be careful," Korra called out as she watched him thrust his arm out and hurl a soldier away as another tried to rush him from behind, only for the young acolyte to turn and throw another blast of wind at him and fling the soldier away. The soldier tried to be sneaky and take him from behind, but the star troublemaker wasn't done yet and released another gassy blast that sent his feet surging upwards and into the man's groin, causing him to fall on his back in pain. Several soldiers tried to surround the young boy, but with a small movement, he curled into a ball and formed a barrier around himself before he lashed out and threw the soldiers away, shaking his head with slobber pouring out as he cried out for battle. Korra felt her face go blank. "Never mind then," the waterbender stated. Suki spun and kicked a soldier in the face before she bent backwards to avoid a kick that was followed by flame. Performing a backwards handstand, she then lashed out with a kick to the bender's face and then pushed off the ground and landed on the man's shoulders, where she was fast enough to spin around and drag him to the ground, where he passed out from the chokehold shortly after. Inori gasped as she bent a dome of air around her to deflect a blast of air. With a thrust of her hand, she sends the man flying through the air and over the fence. "He doesn't come back. Come on guys, time to take back this village," she called out as she blasted another soldier away with incredible power. Aang had his own set of enemies to worry about as he rode around on a ball of air, running around as soldiers tried to chase him. "Ha ha, try and catch me," the boy called with laughter. Coming to a sudden stop, he reversed his direction and shocked some of the soldiers as he blasted past them and laughed as they fell into a pit of animal manure. "I win," he called out. "What are these brats? I haven't fought anything like them before," a soldier cried out as he bent a wave of flame at Tenzin, only to watch as the young bender to block and disperse the powerful flames. "We're airbenders," Tenzin said as he blasted the man away, "so don't take us lightly," he said, jumping up and slamming a blast of wind down on another. "Okay, everybody can help now," Sokka cried as he pulled out his boomerang as he watched more soldiers poured into the village to suppress the fighting. Seeing this, the young boy that had gotten them found by the Fire Nation threw a rock at a soldier, causing him to throw a flame at the teenager. However, before the boy could balk it, a wall of earth rose up and blocked the attack. Seeing that he wasn't dead, the young man turned around and saw his father glaring at the soldiers with anger in his eyes. "I think it's time we took back our home." The father yelled out as the earthbenders rise with a renewed sense of hope. Another firebender launches a large flame toward the father and the boy, but it is blocked by a larger barrier which 6 earthbenders raise in unison as they stomp on the ground and raise their arms up into the air simultaneously. Another earthbender raises a rock and thrusts it at another soldier, and earth blocks a flame attack from the lead soldier who attacked the boy before. Sokka cries out as he takes down the lead soldier, while Long takes out another. After a few more airbending moves from Naruto and a boomerang attack thrown by Sokka, and the soldiers realize they are losing horribly. "We need to get out of here," a soldier cried as he ran off. "Let's go, these people are insane," another cries as the remaining soldiers retreat. Outside the prison, Milo takes out a few more soldiers in the village. After everything is settled, the villagers break open a shed holding all tools related to bending they had left. They took away any tools related to bending, except these which were hidden from sight before they could get to them. An elderly man said kindly as Momo jumped inside the room of bending scrolls and knocks one down. A villager picks up the scroll and gives it to Katara. "The Fire Nation took this scroll from a member of your water tribe," he told her. "The waterbending scroll, this is rare." Korra called out as her sister looked at the scroll in happiness. "Thank you," Katara said with tears in her eyes as the elder leads Naruto over to a large statue that seemed familiar to him. "This was you when you were born an earthbender, 2 lifetimes ago. You came to our village. Avatar Kaioshin loved games," he told Naruto with a kind smile on his face. "I do too, well I still do," he responded after he corrected his statement. "Naruto, we need to leave, we got everything we need here," Suki said walking up to him. "Thank you for everything." Naruto bowed to the villagers. "No Avatar, thank you for bringing us back to our senses," a villager said as the man bowed to him. This motion was followed by all the other earthbenders who kneeled on the ground and bowed to him. "You're very welcome," Naruto said as he returned their bow. "I must leave now with my friends, this is goodbye, and I hope to see all of you soon in the future," he said to them. Soon the group was walking to Torok, though Sokka was quick to point something out to the Avatar. "A lot of the villages in this part of the Earth Kingdom are occupied by the Fire Nation, like this village was. They prey on the weakest towns and villages. We should go visit some of these towns," he said, hoping his plan was taken into consideration. "We can get them on the way. Our journey is to the north, so that means we keep heading north. Besides, we can learn the basics of waterbending from the scroll we received from these nice villagers," he told them. "Then what are we waiting for, we have a rebellion to lead," Suki cheered out happily. "Yay, it's time we get in on the action," Milo said, trying to sound tough. The team then set out on the journey to the north. Along the way, they visit the villages, where they announce the Avatar has returned. In villages that are still occupied by Fire Nation soldiers, the airbenders uses their airbending to defeat soldiers and liberate the village from their grip. A week later. Stopping in a new village to resupply, the group found a well-off village with what looked to be no Fire Nation influence in it. Suki smiled as a breeze brushed over her skin. "This feels nice, no fighting, no Fire Nation, no prisons, just a nice relaxing breeze," she sighed in satisfaction. "Don't forget why we're here, guys," Jinora said to the little boys. "Actually, I was thinking about leaving them here with Torok and Appa to make sure nobody stumbled upon them. Would you and Korra stay with them to make sure they stay out of trouble?" Naruto asked his fellow bender, who looked to him. "I thought you would need help with the supplies," she asked. "We're only getting a couple bags of food and water skins, then come right back. It shouldn't take us long," Naruto assured her. "Alright, we can stay here." Korra shrugged as the boys pouted. "I mean, too many of us in one spot could give us away, and that is the last thing we want to do right now," she said afterwards. "So me, Naruto, Katara, and Sokka are just getting supplies, and then it's a straight shot to the North Pole from here," Suki said. "Well, the Northern Air Temple is nearby. I would like to pay my respects to the temple before we go on," Jinora added afterwards. "That's if nobody is there, we can't be too sure with everything that's going on," Naruto told her. "I know, but it's just that they were our people, and I don't want to miss the chance to show proper respect to our fallen people," Jinora said. "We'll visit it one day," Naruto told her as he raised her chin to make her look at him. "Never give in to that sadness, Jin, okay?" he said before he pecked her on the cheek. Inora blushed a bit but nodded her head, ignoring the jealous glare sent at her by Suki, while the boys just snickered. Jinora and Naruto sitting in a tree kissing. First the boys didn't get to finish as they were blasted away, their laughter following them as she did so with a larger blush on her cheeks. "Come on Romeo, you can flirt later, we need to get our stuff and leave this place before the Fire Nation comes by," Suki said, grabbing Naruto by the collar and drug him away from the blushing Jinora. "Come on Sokka, make up your mind. We've wasted enough time here as it is. We have to be making our way towards the northern water tribe. Katara sighed out to her brother. It's a fine spear, I could use one of these. He said, admiring the weapon. I'd rather stick to my fans and sword. Suki said, thumbing a sword's cutting edge before putting it back. Not gonna lie, the craftsmanship is extremely well done though. She said in acknowledgement of the work. Necessary supplies, Sokka. Katara reminded her brother. Naruto was walking by a street merchant when he noticed something, rare and fine items. Please take a look. A merchant offered him. Reaching down, he grasped a familiar item. This is a airbender's pendant. Where did you get this? Naruto asked, looking up at the merchant. The man traded it a couple days ago for some medical supplies. The merchant said, shrugging. Did he tell you where he got it? Did he have more? What did he look like? Where was he from? Naruto demanded, in shock of finding one of his people's relics in a Earth Kingdom marketplace. Says he found it up at the Northern Air Temple about a year ago in his travels. Wanted to pay his respects to the air nomads and all that. The merchant shrugged. Thank you. Naruto said, putting it down and walking away. It seems there was a very valid reason to stop by the Northern Air Temple now. Previously. Come on, Sokka, make up your mind. We've wasted enough time here as it is. We have to be making our way towards the Northern Water Tribe. Katara sighed out to her brother. It's a fine spear, I could use one of these. He said, admiring the weapon. I'd rather stick to my fans and sword. Suki said, thumbing a sword's cutting edge before putting it back. Not gonna lie, the craftsmanship is extremely well done though. She said in acknowledgement of the work. Necessary supplies, Sokka. Katara reminded her brother. Naruto was walking by a street merchant when he noticed something, rare and fine items. Please take a look. A merchant offered him. Reaching down, he grasped a familiar item. This is a airbender's pendant. Where did you get this? Naruto asked, looking up at the merchant. The man traded it a couple days ago for some medical supplies. The merchant said, shrugging. Did he tell you where he got it? Did he have more? What did he look like? Where was he from? Naruto demanded, in shock of finding one of his people's relics in a Earth Kingdom marketplace. Says he found it up at the Northern Air Temple about a year ago in his travels. Wanted to pay his respects to the air nomads and all that. The merchant shrugged. Thank you. Naruto said, putting it down and walking away. It seems there was a very valid reason to stop by the Northern Air Temple now. Ugh, you morons have no idea how to fix a freaking boiler. Who taught you how to run a ship? This is utterly ridiculous. An enraged feminine yell roared through the bowels of Princess Azula's vessel. Do you have any idea how much pressure is needed to propel a ship this size through the water? If there's too much pressure, you risk running aground. Not enough, and you have no propulsion from the propeller. You must have no brain in that thing you call a funking skull. Who taught you mechanics, you numbskull? The obviously pissed woman yelled out. Azula felt herself come to a stop as she heard the yelling. Sheesh, and I thought I had a temper. She grumbled. I ought to rip your heads off your shoulders for this blatant negligence to this vessel and feed it to the boiler as fuel, since that might be the only redeeming quality for the whole lot of you. Yeah, I'm going to just wait here for her to finish. She's obviously stressed. A dull female voice said from Azula's right. You might be right about that, Mai. Azula said. Ugh, what a drag. Mai sighed out. Everything's a drag to you, Mai, you need to live more. Azula smirked at her friend. Mai only sighed, troublesome. If Ty Lee were here, this wouldn't be as much of a pain. She sighed out. You ever get the feeling that there might be someone out there in the world with similarities to you? Azula asked her friend. No, it's too troublesome to try and think about. Mai said, crossing her arms. I'd rather be on a beach watching the clouds pass by. She told Azula. And what in an eye's name is this supposed to be, huh? Is this what you call organization? It's utterly filthy. A workspace should be neat and orderly at all times, not whatever the hell this is supposed to be. Clean this abominable eyesore up in 5 minutes or else you'll be swimming for the shore. She needs to get laid. Azula said. She's not the only one. Mai muttered. Come on. We better go check on your cousin before she blows a gasket. Azula said, walking down the corridor. She already has from the sounds of things, but whatever. Mai shrugged as she followed Azula, only to fall to the floor when something crashed into her. The young beauty hit the ground and felt herself grow irked. You wanna watch who you're stepping on? Mai growled out in annoyance. Or you'll what? The beautiful woman that crashed into the ebony-haired beauty and Mai growled at returned. She had a toolbox in her hands and was obviously heading somewhere with them. Azula smirked at the ebony-haired woman. Ah, the lovely and talented Asami. This is your cousin Mai. You remember Mai? Azula said sarcastically. No. Cannot talk. We lost telemetry on one of our aft catapults again. What? Think this is a pleasure cruise? Asami spoke rapidly as she walked past her cousin and princess, only to trip and drop her tools all across the corridor. She's a sweet little thing. Weapon specialist. Normally, she's very good-natured. Asami growled in rage as she picked up a wrench. Great. Things aren't bad enough. Tools all over the floor. Ugh. She yelled as she threw it into the wall with a loud clang of metal striking metal. Fight the good fight, precious. Azula purred out to Asami. Asami held up a pipe wrench and pointed it at the princess with fire burning in her eyes. Azula, I'll kill you. Okay, I will kill you. She told her as she turned and began to pick up her mess. I think it's best we let the sleeping platypus bear sleep where it is and take our time to get out of here. Mai whispered to Azula, who stood with wide eyes. Azula nodded, yes, let's. She agreed. And with that, the two quickly returned to the deck and could hear Asami's ranting through the halls. I am educated and well-read. I'm not mechanic. I have my pride. This ship is all but falling apart and yet I find myself being the one to keep this hunk of tin floating. Remind me to give her extended vacation upon returning home. Azula noted. Duly noted. Mai said. She would definitely remember to remind Azula. As the fire crackled, Naruto sighed again as he stirred his soup. Seeing this, Korra groaned. What is it, Naruto, you've been doing that all afternoon. She stated. It's nothing, just some lingering thoughts about what I saw at the market. He told her. You mentioned you saw something, what was it? Katara asked him. You never told me you saw something in the market. Milo said, why didn't you take it? He demanded. Because of 3 things. Naruto said, holding up said digits. First, it had been an obvious trap. Second, I don't feel like fighting just before going to sleep if they had some way to track what it was. And finally, it was an airbender pendant, which would be an obvious piece of bait for us. He said to the brat. Oh, okay. Milo said, not really sure how he could respond to Naruto's statement and reasons. Airbender pendant. Aang cried out, where did the man find it? He asked eagerly. If it arrests Aang, our culture is all but destroyed. We are the last ones. Why would we fall for a trap that is obviously designed for airbenders? Tenzin huffed out. But that still doesn't take away the fact that the possibility of there being more of us. Aang said. Aang, the best you can do is let sleeping ghosts lie. Jinora said, biting into apple. Remember, we are deep in Fire Nation territory that lies in the Earth Kingdom, and not only that, but the whole lot of us are wanted dead by the Fire Nation. She stated. But, there might be others. Aang weakly argued. Aang, I know how you feel, really, but we aren't looking around for possible would-be survivors. And even if we found any airbenders, they would be incredibly old and on the brink of death if they were alive. Korra stated factually. Exactly, now finish your meal and go to sleep. Naruto ordered the boy. What about that lead to a possible survivor? Aang asked. Enough, Aang. There are no others. We are the last of our culture. Do you understand there is nobody else except us? Naruto yelled out, his voice echoing out across the distant mountains in the distance. Naruto. Jinora cried out, appalled by his behavior. Naruto took a deep breath and softly released it. Finish your food and go to sleep. We will not be discussing the pendant ever again, Aang. Do you understand? Naruto asked softly, but his voice still carried a stern edge to it. The grief of his people, Aang's inability to realize that so many years had passed by, as well as his persistence to try and search for survivors, was all taking its toll on the Avatar. He was incredibly stressed and worried about what he had saw and should have known better than reveal he had found that airbender talisman at the market, especially in front of the 3 children who didn't truly understand the concept of time as well as death like the older teens of the group did. Naruto and Ko were settling down for the night. Torek was lying in the snow, unbothered by the cold. His companion was leaning against his hide with a fur blanket over his legs. Suki looked at Naruto in worry. You sure you don't need another blanket, Naruto? She asked him. Yeah, I'm sure, you take it. It's supposed to be really cold tonight. He told her. Not only that, but he was used to cold nights when sleeping. He had lived on a mountain his whole life, so it was nothing new for him. Suki nodded her head and returned to her spot by the fire. Well, good night everyone. She said, laying down. Night, Suki. Korra called out. Try to have pleasant dreams, my sweetness. Milo told Suki. That's just weird. Korra muttered. She's too old for you, Milo. Jinora huffed as she coiled into her own blanket. Technically, she'd be too young for him. You guys are still in your hundreds, remember? Sokka asked. That too. Suki said with a snicker. The sooner we reach the North Pole the better. Katara sighed out as she put more wood on the fire. You need to slow your roll there, sis. We'll get to the North Pole when we get there. We aren't in a rush. Korra sighed as she snuggled into Appa's fur. It's not for me. Katara retorted, Naruto needs a teacher and we still have weeks of traveling left to go through. She told her twin. Sure it is. Korra snickered out. You sure are in a hurry to find other waterbenders. Relax, we're almost at the North Pole. Sokka told his youngest sibling. Can we all just get some sleep? Suki called out in annoyance. Sheesh, not even the other Kaioshin warriors were this annoying. A couple hours later when he was sure that everyone was in fact asleep, Aang roused himself from his apparent slumber and got up. Ignoring the cold, he grabbed his glider and looked to his group. Seeing the others he walked over and crouched down beside Naruto personally and whispered, "Sorry, but I have to look into this pendant. I'll be back before you know it." And then he was gone. As Aang glided through the air, he couldn't help but look back in minuscule amounts of worry. Maybe I should have mentioned this to Jinora or even Tenzin. He thought to himself, I know she would want to make sure that others might have survived, but truth be told she would also be wanting to focus on reaching the North Pole, so I can learn and master all the elements. But there was something about that pendant that bugged me to look around for other airbenders. I can't worry about that now. I have to move as fast as I can through these mountains before heading back to the group, and he stopped his inner monologue as he noticed something on the ground beneath him as he flew and decided to fly down and take a closer look. It's a stupa. He said excitedly as he planted his feet on the ground. That meant that airbenders were here. Looking around he noticed that a side of the mountain looked incorrect and stood out to him. Those caves, they're man-made. He said before he saw something else, and there is light coming from the inside, meaning someone might be here. He told himself quietly. With silent hops he bounded down towards the cavern. Stopping at the door he noticed a lot of relics from his culture, airbending tokens. What's all this stuff doing here? Slowly walking in he noticed a figure huddling over a shrine, hidden from sight by a airbending cloak. Well, it looked convincing, it still stood out to Aang, and his senses were telling him that this was all wrong. Deciding to take a chance to get out with his life while he could, he started to back away. Before he could step out the hut he heard a shout of, "Now. Get him." The foreign net was dropped over him and snaring him tightly. The figure stood up and pulled the cloak off, causing Aang to gawk in shock. "What? You're not an airbender. Who are you?" he asked in shock. A sinister laugh drew his attention. Well, isn't this a surprise? To think I would actually still have it in me even after all these years." A deep voice said. "Who in the name of the spirits are you supposed to be?" Aang grunted. "Oh, forgive me, young airbender. I am Commander, soon to be General, Zhao. Now, seeing as there are potentially more of you lying around, due to my informant telling me as such, I do not know if you are the Avatar, and if by chance you are, we can't just kill you simply because you'd be reborn, and there are airbenders you can learn from again, and we can't have that now, can we?" Zhao said. "The FFT, well, good. Makes me feel all cozy inside that you wouldn't just needless kill us." Aang growled as he felt himself being tied up. "Well, regardless, I must say I am actually quite glad I ran into you and your little group when I did, seeing as I was actually on my way to the southern pole to eradicate it off the face of this world and then hunt down that pathetic excuse of a prince and kill him and then his weak little sister. When Ozai is weeping I will kill him and banish Iroh to the dungeons and rule over all the world. Running into you was just a bonus." Zhao laughed to himself. "Is there a point to all your monologue? I'm getting sleepy here trying to get over the fact I'm trying not to space out from your idiocy," Aang said before yawning to annoy Zhao, who punched him in the gut. The merchant walked up to Zhao and collected a pouch of money with a greedy grin. "Thank you, Commander," he said before looking to the young airbender. "Now what about him?" he asked. "We wait for the others of his group. When we distinguish who the Avatar is out of them, then we kill the rest and take the Avatar back to the capital to break and mold to see our point of view. With the programmed Avatar on our side, we will rule this world with an iron fist." Zhao laughed out. "And these relics? They are quite pricey on the black market," the man said. "Take as much of this junk you can carry. We have no use of it anymore," he told the merchant. "One doesn't catch pheasant squirrels by sitting idly. You hunt them where they live," he sneered at Naruto. Aang cleared his throat. "If I may ask, how did he know I was an airbender and your potential target, that being the Avatar by the way?" the boy said. "It's simple really. The same tactic that I used to capture you was used years ago. When the airbenders that escaped him were never found, Fire Lord Sazin begun to set traps for them. Caves such as these were set up to look as if other airbender refugees had taken up residency in them. Sazin used your people's everyday objects as bait to lure them in, so our soldiers could close in," Zhao explained before leaning down to spit into Aang's face, "and this old stratagem still works today, seeing as we caught one of the last remaining airbenders being a constant thorn in our side," he said while Aang wiped the spit out of his eye. "Your curiosity and lack of knowledge on our military history was your downfall." Zhao shrugged. Aang raised a brow. "Lack of knowledge? I bet that you don't even know what half this stuff really is. And with that, it's time that I gave you a quick history lesson," Aang said to Zhao as he noticed a lot of good things he could fight back with. And with that, he quickly spun around, ripping the soldier holding him with a rope off his feet. "Hold him, you fools." Zhao roared. The soldier was flung into a wall. Zhao growled and bent a blast of fire at Aang, who opened his legs and allowed the fire to burn the ropes. "Ever hear one of these horns?" The 7-year-old asked, landing beside a large horn as he inhaled. When an airbender plays it, he blew into it, releasing a bellow that shook the ground. Zhao growled as Aang quit blowing the horn. Enough. I'll just bring your charred remains to the Fire Lord. He roared out, only to stop when he noticed Aang standing on a golden ornament. A large ornament. Hey Zhao, ever see one of these? Aang asked with a cheeky grin, curious to find out what it can do. He questioned before he began to rapidly spin it. The dorge was used in spiritualistic rituals, but me and my friends found out that if you spin them in a room this would happen. He said as currents of air smashed into each Fire Nation citizen. Grabbing his glider with his mouth, Aang bolted for the door. Sorry I can't stay, but I gotta go. Places to be and things to do and all that. It's a very tight schedule. He said as he pulled the ropes up over his head. Back inside, Zhao sat up with a groan, a pot sitting up on his head. Seeing this, the merchant groaned in disgust. Commander, I don't know if you know this, but that's an airbender chamber. Before he could finish, Zhao growled at him, shut up. The next morning the group woke up and ate before Suki pointed out a quick detail. Aang was missing. Looking around, they soon noticed he was sitting on the edge of a cliff. Aang? Katara asked as she walked up to him. Hey guys, he muttered out. What are you doing all the way out here? We were looking for you. Suki asked as she walked up beside the Water Tribe native. I think I know. Korra said as she came up as well. This place reminds you of home. All these mountains, an airbender would have loved to stay here. They would have been attracted to this place. She said, putting a hand on his shoulder. Aang sighed deeply. A few probably were. He whispered to himself. Naruto shook his head. He probably ran off in the middle of the night as well. He pointed out. Naruto, he didn't run off. He's homesick, just like you, me, Milo and Tenzin. Jinora said. No, he's right. I ran off. Aang sighed. I left to see if I could find more airbenders and was fooled by a Fire Nation trap. I barely escaped. I should have just listened to Naruto and let sleeping ghosts lie. Aang sighed. And I assume we have learned a valuable lesson here, Aang? Korra asked the boy. Yay. Listen to your elders when they say something like it might be a trap. Aang said. Not really. She said, I was gonna say do things as a group to make sure that something bad doesn't inherently happen, but that works too. She said with a mild laugh. Well, seeing as everyone is here, why don't we finish packing and get a move? North Pole is a few weeks north of here, and we don't want to linger where the Fire Nation is. Suki said, turning around and walking away, only to stop and turn back. And Aang, I'm glad you were able to make it back in one piece. She said, smiling softly at the boy who nodded his head. Azula knelt before a curtain of golden flames. Behind this wall was the imposing figure of Fire Lord Ozai himself. Azula bowed her head. I have come at your request, father. She greeted the man. Azula, my dear, news has reached my ears that you have encountered the Avatar. Is this not true? He asked. It is. We had a brief bout, but he managed to escape through some smokescreen tactics. She answered him. I see. Tell me, my daughter, why is it that I receive word from some of my men that you were easily pushed back by one mere cretin that crawls through the mud beneath our feet? Why is it that you, a high-born rule, is held back by a mere monk? Ozai snarled out. Azula flinched. He was more experienced in airbending than I had originally anticipated. It shall not happen again. She told her father. Ozai took a deep breath. Of course it won't. Because if it does, then you will be joining your brother in his exile, albeit permanently. He growled out in frustration. You have one more chance to bring me the Avatar, alive at that, before I take matters into my own hands. If you fail me, you would have wished you were never born. Do you understand me, child? He demanded. Of course, father. Azula said weakly. Good. Gather your allies and head north for the siege on the North Pole. It is highly likely that you will encounter your elder brother in his attempt to capture the Avatar to redeem himself. If he does so, then he will be welcomed with open arms. You, however, will take his place in exile for the remainder of your days. However, if you should prevail and bring me the Avatar instead, then you shall become my rightful heir, and likewise your brother will be banished for the remainder of his days to never return. Ozai said, seemingly pleased with the thought of banishing either of his children. And should the both of us fail? She asked her father in a shaky voice. Then you will regret ever being born from my superior bloodline. If the both of you should fail, you and your allies will become enemies of the Fire Nation. Your brother will have a bounty placed on his head to return his headless corpse to me, and you and your allies shall be punished in a fashion that is worse than death. I won't go into details, but you should know what happens to female prisoners of war. Men do get so lonely sometimes. So you best succeed where Zuko cannot. Ozai growled at her, now get out of my sight. I have a war to fight. He commanded her. Of course, father. Azula gulped nervously. And with that she stood up and quickly left. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.